A gorgeous Saturday afternoon in New York. You know, Foreigner performed in concert last night, but we welcome citizens of all nations to our fair city. Baseball this afternoon on a gorgeous day in New York as the Mets try and find their way out of a losing skid as they take on the Cubs. At Citi Field in New York, Pix 11 Sports presents New York Mets baseball today, and the Mets play the Chicago Cubs. And a pleasant good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Citi Field. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling with you today as the Mets played the middle game of their series against the Cubs. Chicago won last night 6-3, despite the best efforts of rookie center fielder Juan Lagares, who's going to get more playing time now. He's been doing it defensively all year and now showing off his bat as well.
Well, I don't know if it's the Chicago Cubs. Remember, he hit his first home run in Wrigley Field off the Cubs, but showed tremendous power inside out in that ball to right field. David DeGea's loose. We hope he's all right. But even more importantly, he has been so great from day one here with his defense. Ability to go back on the baseball track and take his eye off it and then come back and make a fine catch. Great on the defense side. He's going to have to prove, though, that he can hit the breaking ball. That'll be the key, and hit the ball in the strike zone, not swinging the pitch out of the strike zone.
And the Mets have been impressed enough in recent days that his playing time is going to increase. Meanwhile, John Niese makes the start. Niese came back from a bout of shoulder tendonitis to pitch well and no decision in his last start.
Well, the thing for John Niese, he's had 12 starts. 9 of them have been real good. 3 of them have not. He's had a hard time getting away from that crooked number kind of inning. This is the time, really, though, to stop a losing streak for John to finally go on a roll.
And for the Cubs this afternoon, the former Texas Ranger Scott Feldman, who pitched a great game against the Mets in Chicago.
Great game. He can pitch, he can hit, right? And the thing about Feldman, 3 seasons ago, he won 17 games for the Texas Rangers, trying to find his way now in the National League.
So it's the Mets and the Cubs on a sparkling Saturday afternoon. Niese against Feldman. Come on back. Mets and Cubs from Citi Field. All the action coming your way this afternoon right here on Pix 11. By Time Warner Cable, enjoy all the things you love better. Call 1-855-WANT-TWC. By Mazda and the all-new Mazda 6. By Benjamin Moore for everything that matters. By the Volkswagen Sign Then Drive event, where you can drive away for practically just your signature. And by Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Get out to Citi Field for tons of family fun with the Mets Family Pack. You can buy a ticket, see the game, and get a hot dog, French fries, and soda starting at just $23 each, which equals big savings. Get to Mets.com for tickets. Keys to the game brought to you by Jaguar. See the new model year lineup at JaguarUSA.com.
Well, David Wright has been red hot, as you see. You look at Jonathan Niese. They did score 34 runs for him in his first 3 starts, but everything's dried up since then. And Scott Feldman, with RISP, hitters were only 5 for their first 40, but they have been getting to him lately, and hopefully the Mets can do it today.
John Niese, 1.67 ERA over his last 4 starts. He tries to keep those good times going and get the Mets a win at the same time. Mets and Cubs, first pitch is coming right up. Easy Choice sales event. The choice is easy. The savings are big. Shop ChooseNissan.com. Let's check out the lineup for the Cubs this afternoon. Brought to you by your local Tri-Honda dealer. Darwin Barney, just the 5th time this year he's slid into the leadoff spot as the Cubs go with a different lineup against the left-hander. Cody Ransom, who started the year with the Padres, playing third base today. Starlin Castro slots into that 3-hole. Ryan Sweeney filling in for the injured David DeJesus in center. DeJesus went on the disabled list today with what they're calling a sprained shoulder after crashing the fence last night. And you see the Cubs have only 4 bench players because they activated a relief pitcher, Sean Kemp. So they're going with 13 pitchers for the moment.
There's the manager, Dale Swaim. Had a huge year in '87 for the Brewers as their shortstop. 25 home runs and 97 RBI. It's been a slog, though, for him as a manager with these Cubbies.
101 losses last year for Chicago, doing somewhat better this year. Well, John Niese has pitched on his share of cold days, rainy days, windy days. Today he gets a perfect day.
You know what they really, Jonathan needs to do, though? One of the things that the reason they gave him that big contract is because he's been so consistent, and he hasn't been this season. Time for him to start to get on one of those long rolls that we've seen him many times in his career. Even John clapping
for the youngster who's throwing out the first pitch.
Looks like a young Mark Teixeira, doesn't he?
Can he switch hit? Can we sign him?
Yeah, right.
Today's game is presented in high definition by Time Warner Cable. Enjoy all the things you love better. Call 1-855-WANT-TWC.
Well, defensively behind Jonathan Niese this afternoon, a few changes in the field. We go in the outfield. Duda, Lagares, and Bird. That had no changes. Right, Turner's the change. At shortstop, Valdespin and Murphy, and Anthony Recker getting the catching. And the look at the defense was brought to you by the New York Lottery. Hey, never know.
That's true. You really never do.
I think you kind of know.
Omar Quintanilla had been struggling offensively the last few games after getting off to a hot start. Turner, I was shocked to see and recollect, he has not started a game in 2.5 weeks. He had been getting a lot more playing time earlier in the year, but Terry Collins felt as though it was time to get Turner, who has been struggling offensively as well, back into the lineup.
Where were we? In Washington, right? He was going to start in left field, and the game was canceled, so he lost one of those starts.
And that was going to be his first ever start in the outfield. He had played just 1 inning out there. He has yet to be re-penciled in for an outfield start, although you never know. With the day-night doubleheader coming up in Atlanta on Tuesday, you may see a lot of folks playing some places that they're not accustomed to. Mets have gone 3 straight games without an error, trying to play as well behind John Niese today. Niese has had trouble against the Cubs. 6 lifetime starts, 2-3 with a 5.61 ERA. This is his first outing against Chicago this year. Darwin Barney will lead things off. 1 for 4 last night, drove in the second Chicago run. Cubs got a run in the first and 4 in the second, and held on from there to beat Sean Markham and the Mets 6-3.
Well, the left-handed pitcher will fall off to the third base side. Murphy, the first baseman, is back. Inexperienced with Valdespin. He could try to bunt to the right side in this at bat.
And swinging at the first pitch fastball and fouling it back, and we're underway. Barney at 209 on the year, and you see that right side not respecting the bunt at all. And Valdespin shading him toward the middle, playing Barney very much as a pull hitter. And Barney bounces that one foul on the cutter, and it's 0-2. He's 3-5 on the year, 4.24 ERA. Too many walks early in the season, but he walked only 1 in his last start against Miami in 6 2/3. Wound up a no decision for him, a game he left with the lead, but the bullpen let it get away. A ball and 2 strikes on Barney, with Cody Ransom and Starlin Castro to follow for the Cubs, who are 24 and 38, 27 and 38 on the year. And they've won 2 in a row after a stretch in which they lost 8 out of 10. The Cubs very much a team in transition, as the Mets are, as they try to build toward the future under a new front office. Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer in their 3rd year, as Barney fouls it off, and it's 2-2.
And I think you're right. The party line for them has been very similar to the one for the Mets, and that is that they're going to let their young players do their time in the minors until they're ready to come up. They've got a lot of position players in the minors that will have a chance at some point. Not as much pitching depth.
Barney bounces one to the left side. Turner has the long throw to make. One hop to Murphy, and he picks it out nicely for the first out of the game.
Well, the rules of baseball almost dictate that the first ball had to be hit to Turner's backhand. And he made a fine play. A little short scoop there by the Murph. What do you love about Justin Turner is he's not going to have tremendous range, but what he gets to, he's sure-handed.
So 1 out and nobody on. Now the veteran Cody Ransom, who we saw very early this season when San Diego came in to begin the year. Ransom played 5 games for the Padres. They let him go on waivers, and the Cubs picked him up, and he's become part of a third base platoon with Luis Valbuena, who started last night. Ransom is now 37 years old, and I was looking at his transaction record today. He has made 13 moves in his career from one organization to another. He has never been dealt for a player. He's either been released, claimed on waivers, sold for cash. So he's moved around and around and around baseball, keeps getting jobs, but never traded for another player, which I think is remarkable. And he drives one into left center for a base hit. So Ransom, the first base runner of the afternoon, a 1-out single.
You know what he has is a very energetic and hardworking agent. That's what he has. Nice job here by Ransom. Ball on the outside part.
And Ransom just took second base as the ball came loose, and the question is, was time called? And apparently it was not.
Well, I'm going to have to count on our truck and the monitor because I was looking down to put in his base hit. Okay, there's the base hit, okay? Watch Jonathan Niese. And the throw comes in. Oh, and John doesn't catch the throw.
Yep, ball sails past him, and Ransom alertly takes second because Recker, the catcher, never moved for the ball. Well, they're going to call an error on Valdespin for making the wide throw back to the mound. And so Ransom goes to second on Valdespin's error.
Well, like I said, I thought I saw it all, and right off the bat.
Well, that's that's just not paying attention, and that's not just on Valdespin. That goes in a lot of different directions. Starlin Castro takes a call strike because as soon as that ball gets by Niese, Anthony Recker's got to react, and he did not.
You know, it's just the attention to detail. I mean, if you can't make a throw of 12 feet and you can't back it up, it's a bad way to start a game. But
Castro takes inside 2-1. Starlin Castro hitting third in the order, 0 for 4 last night. Alfonso Soriano in the cleanup spot on deck. Well, when something like that happens, especially at the outset of a game, Ronnie, as a pitcher, is it very easy to lose your focus?
If you're not of a strong mind, yeah, I'm sure it is. But is it frustrating? I think I can see Terry Collins. Yes, it's very frustrating. And your first thought, Gary, until you push out of your mind, what's going on here? Come on. Well, some of these players on this Mets team are lucky that they not got Terry Collins from 1995 because there would be some heck to pay, I guess I can say. You can see it on the manager. I mean, he can barely look at the field.
I mean, that's a play that you would be shocked to see in a high school game, much less in a Major League Baseball game, to give up an extra base on a simple toss back to the mound.
My high school coach, you wouldn't have finished the inning after a play like that.
Castro staying in the at-bat, fouling off that fastball.
You know, when I watch Starlin Castro hit, it reminds me a little bit about the infielder to his right early in his career, Aramis Ramirez. He has a little bit of that swing, right? Ramirez was there, right, when he first came up?
Now playing third for Milwaukee. This will be the 7th pitch of the at-bat from Niese to Castro, who's playing in his 262nd consecutive game today. Ransom at second and 1 out, and Castro bounces the fastball foul. Down to David Bell, his third base coach. You mentioned, Ronnie, the Cubs taking their time with the youngsters in the minor leagues. They have got one of the best prospects in baseball, a shortstop named Javier Baez.
He had a nice week, didn't he? Or day?
Well, he had 4 home runs in a Florida State League game, which had been done once in the last 94 years before him. Back door, and he gets him with the cutter. Strike 3 call. There's a big second out for John Niese.
Well, the thing with John Niese is if he makes you so vulnerable inside or aware of inside, he can occasionally dart that outside corner, and that's a perfect pitch. Nice framing by Anthony Recker. You see the front foot of Castro opening up to look for the ball, middle of the plate in, and he was fooled by that ball away.
So 2 out, Ransom still at second, and now Alfonso Soriano, who was 0 for 4 last night, Soriano, even at age 37, plays every day, and he takes a strike from Niese. 7 home runs, 28 RBIs after a very big year last year.
This will be the mark for John. He's going to have to be careful with Soriano. Likes the ball down and likes the ball middle of the plate in.
It's always had that almost glowering stance, hunched over the plate, almost daring you to throw the ball inside.
Almost reminds me, he's a little more crouched than you would remember. Not everyone would remember. Frank Robinson in his day used to stand right on the plate, lean over it, a little crouch, and wanting you to come inside.
Don Baylor.
Yeah, Don Baylor.
Here's the 0-2, and the curveball bounced toward third. Wright making the running toss, and he gets Soriano's side retired. So the Mets are able to survive a very odd lapse in the field and send Niese off with a scoreless inning. Needless to say, his errant toss back to the pitcher was a topic of conversation when the Mets came in between innings.
Well, they can laugh about it now because the Cubbies did not score, but he's trying to say he went to throw it and it sailed on him.
I must say that none of his teammates are smiling with him. Valdespin, meanwhile, has been getting a chance to play, and he remains at the top of the batting order as we check out the lineup, brought to you by your local Tri-Honda dealer. Justin Turner gets the start at short today. Anthony Recker behind the plate. Otherwise, pretty much the same unit. Although Marlon Byrd and Lucas Duda trade places today, and Byrd moves into the cleanup spot. He's been the hottest bat in the lineup.
Well, Scott Feldman, you can look at his numbers here. He should have a better record. That low ERA. He's pitched well. His whip is low. Very tall pitcher, sinker, slider, big overhand hook, a little changeup.
His ERA would be even better if not for 2 really bad starts against Cincinnati, including his last start when he gave up 5 runs in 6 innings. But he pitched terrific against the Mets, 6 2/3, no runs, 7 hits back on the 18th of May. Feldman, now 30 years old, 17-game winner with the Cubs in 2009. He had knee problems after that, microfracture surgery on that knee, and it's been a struggle until this year for him to rebound, but off to a good start with a new team. Valdespin 0 for his last 12, hitting at .213. And he takes a fastball for a strike. And you shouldn't stand around waiting for walks with Feldman. He is a strike thrower. Just 3 walks in his last 5 starts combined. Valdespin, Murphy, and Wright for the Mets in the opening inning. And Valdespin on a cutter that almost hit him. Swings and misses 0-2.
I mentioned before that Feldman had always been a bullpen guy. Finally won a spot in the Texas rotation in 2009 and won 17 games.
Quickly ahead on Valdespin. And he misses with the curveball. 1-2.
Feldman's a little bit like, he's a big guy, does not throw hard, like Chris Young a little bit.
6'7". Tops out about 90 miles an hour with his fastball, and he goes upstairs to strike out Valdespin for the first out.
He's got the big, lazy motion, and that was a cutter there that never really cut, and in fact, almost got by Castillo. Look at the defense for the Cubs. Soriano, Sweeney, and Hairston in the outfield. Ransom, Castro, Barney, and Rizzo at first base. Castillo playing behind the plate. Brought to you by New York Lottery. Hey, you never know.
So 1 out. Here's Daniel Murphy, who drove in a couple of runs last night with 2 base hits. Murphy at 285. Murphy's been dealing with a position change this week and doing it without complaint after having established himself as an everyday second baseman, now being asked to fill in at first with Ike Davis in the minor leagues and Valdespin getting a chance to play second. How long that lasts, I think, is very much up in the air as Murphy takes one the other way, a foul ball. I mean, first of all, nobody knows how long Ike Davis is going to have to be down in Las Vegas trying to fix his swing. And if Valdespin continues to struggle as much as he has, that experiment could get blown up in a hurry.
Well, he's at the leadoff spot to bunt for base hits. He hasn't done that yet since he's been in the leadoff spot. To steal some bases, hasn't done that since he's been there. And like you said, has struggled to get hits.
That's plenty of other options if they want to reconfigure things before Ike comes back. They could play Turner at first base. They could make a somewhat more radical move and move Duda in to play his natural position at first base and move Murphy back to second. But all that's on hold right now. Murphy grounds one down to Rizzo at first, and he makes the toss to Feldman for the second out. So 2 out and nobody on. Your home plate umpire today, Port Jefferson native Vic Carapazza. Lance Barrett at first, Lance Barksdale at second, and the crew chief Gary Cedarstrom is at third.
The ferry goes into Port Jeff, right?
Well, it's also the end of the line on the Port Jefferson branch.
I'm certainly learning about the Long Island Railroad the last couple of days.
It's right after Setauket.
Not Setauket?
Well, you can go both ways.
Okay.
I think the folks out there prefer Setauket, which is right after St. James. Stony Brook, Setauket, Port Jefferson.
I got it now. I'm usually stopping at Northport, but.
Well, here's David Wright, who's been on base 7 straight plate appearances, 6 hits and a walk in his last 7 trips to the plate. And he takes low and inside ball 1. Wright was 3 for 3 with a walk last night. His longest on base streak is 9. And he's done that twice, once in 05 and once in 08. The last Met to reach base 7 times in a row might surprise you. Jason Bay, 2 years ago. And Feldman catches the outside corner, and Wright did not agree. 2-1. The last Met with a longer streak of reaching base was Jose Reyes, 8 straight, also 2 years ago. And Wright lifts one foul, 2-2.
You can see by watching from in front of your TV that Feldman does not throw anything straight. It's either sinking, cutting, hooking, diving.
That cutter has become such an important pitch for him. And he really dominated the Mets with that pitch the game he threw against them in Chicago. Also had a big hit in that game. 2-2 to Wright, and it's low and away. Full count to David with Marlon Byrd on deck. Well, Feldman's part of your fraternity, the Hawaiian-born.
That's right, Kailua. That's where the president goes for his vacations, on the southern part of, northern part of Oahu.
3-2, and it's outside, and right streak continues. 8 straight times now he's reached base. 6 hits, and now his second walk, and the Mets have their first base runner of the game. Scott grew up in California, though, and went to College of San Mateo. 30th round draft pick by Texas in 03. Sometimes those late round picks work out.
Well, he was a great college pitcher as far as his record was concerned. 25-2, I think, was his college record.
So now Bird, who was 1 for 3 last night. Marlin really has been swinging the bat well. Last 13 games, hitting .306 with 6 home runs. And Feldman dents the outside corner with a fastball. Lucas Duda would be next. David has stolen 12 bases this year. Feldman generally is a guy you can run on. Tall pitcher with a lot of moving parts. He's given up 13 steals this year, which is 1 off the major league lead for stolen bases allowed. Only Edison Volquez, 14, has allowed more. So it might be a good spot for Wright to try and swipe one. Not getting a huge lead.
Tall right-handers. Feldman, Chris Young couldn't hold runners on. The only one we've seen recently, Adam Wainwright. But he has a little help because the guy he's throwing to, Molina.
Nobody wants to run on him.
Right.
One and one to Bird, who's homered 2 of the last 3 games. Wright runs and Bird fouls it off. So David got himself a pretty good jump. So he'll head on back.
Great jump, and he was flying, by the way.
Well, there you see your stolen base allowed leaders, or trailers, depending on your point of view. Surprised to see Hamels on that list, just because a lefty should never give up that many steals.
It's obvious that he has a way about him that guys have read in the National League or in baseball and are able to pick it up.
Well, Vince Coleman always said that lefties are either easy to run on or impossible to run on. And Bird chases that cutter out of the strike zone, and Feldman has his second strikeout, and that ends the bottom of the first inning. A walk in, 1 left. John Niese heads back to the mound for the second. Feldman's now gone 7 2/3 against the Mets this year without allowing a run. the youngsters to their first game of ball. Day with Dad just before Father's Day. Anthony Rizzo leads off for the Cubs in the second. Rizzo broke out of a slump with 3 hits last night, and he takes a strike. Keith would be appalled.
Oh, he doesn't like the cotton candy?
Hates the cotton candy.
Something wrong with him. What's he thinking?
You know, I don't necessarily think of him as the most fastidious guy, but he just doesn't like the sticky feeling on his fingers.
That way he can't do it coloring on the scorecard.
Of course, you can get cotton candy in every one of the colors that Keith uses on his scorecard. A ball and 2 strikes to Rizzo, who has not hit a home run since he hit one against the Mets in Chicago a month ago. Scott Hairston, the former Met, on deck, and then Wellington Castillo against Niese in the second. Hit toward the hole, cut off by Wright, and now the off-balance throw on a hop, and Murphy picks it out of the dirt for the first out. Nicely done by Wright. He went a long way for that ball.
What I like about David this year defensively, that his range is better than I've seen it in some time, and his imagination is great. Going away from the bag, throwing on the run, and using the bounce to his advantage. Outstanding.
Made that bounce easy for Murphy. You know, Murph had an error in his first game there this week, but he's looked pretty comfortable since. Here's Hairston, who's had a devil of a time since signing with the Cubs in the offseason, and he takes a strike.
Don't you think the most difficult part for Murph would just be the changing of the glove? You know, it's not even his glove, right? It's Turner's glove, because he had put his to rest.
He gave it away, gave it to one of the players at Jacksonville University, because he figured he wasn't going to need it anymore.
I mean, using that big glove, and then after he'd been using the small one at second base, I think that's the most difficult part.
I think Murph often has issues also with positioning on relays and the like. But he's done fine. Hit sharply, and Hairston's got a base hit. So in his return to Citi Field, Scott Hairston, who struck out in his only at bat last night, has a 1-out single. The recovery room brought to you by New York Presbyterian. Amazing things are happening here. Last night, David DeJesus suffering a sprained shoulder, hitting the fence in center field. He went on the disabled list today. And DeJesus and everybody involved felt, as we did, that considering how bad this looked when he first went down and how much pain he was in, he came out of it pretty okay. They're going to run some more tests to see just what the severity is and how long he might be out. But when he first came down, it looked horrific.
Just that scene right there, he can play in my team anytime.
Well, it's the way he plays. Wellington Castillo, the #1 catcher for the Cubs, first time he's ever had the starting role. And Castillo's done okay, hitting a .256. Ryan Sweeney hitting 8th in the order, waiting on deck. And Niese runs the cutter inside, 2-0.
Don's a little off so far in this game. I know it's only the second inning, but just not as crisp here in the beginning.
And he misses with the sinker, and it's 3-0. He's given up a couple of base hits, struck out 1. Three-1 to Castillo, and he reaches for it and fouls it back. Full count.
You like Castillo, huh, Gary? He's done a nice job for them.
You know, he's a guy who they felt a couple of years ago wasn't working hard enough and took the message to heart and has become an obsessive worker behind the plate, and he's become very skilled. And there's ball 4, and the Cubs have 2 men on.
I'm sure if you were a catcher in the system, you thought that you were going to be buried for life after Soto won the Rookie of the Year, but Soto went backwards after that fantastic first season.
Well, the message in that regard, and to just about anybody who plays minor league baseball, is Opportunity will present itself if you make it happen. If you be the best you can possibly be, you've got a better chance.
Key is to open eyes, and sometimes it's not your organization.
Right. There are 29 other teams watching at all times. Ryan Sweeney filling in center field for the injured DeJesus. Hasn't played much against lefties, but when he has, he's been successful. He's hitting .391 against left-hand pitching in a limited number of at-bats.
Well, we saw him in Chicago. He had some pop.
Had a home run and a double the game he started against the Mets. He was in spring training with the Red Sox after playing with them last year, and they let him go right at the end of the spring. And the Cubs signed Sweeney right after opening day. He's a lifetime .281 hitter. Toward the hole, cut off by Wright, gets the out at second. Valdespin gets upended by Castillo, and no chance to turn two. Well, that's how you break up a double play.
You see that? That was pretty interesting. David had to throw it late, so kind of hung out Valdespin to dry. Couldn't get out of the way of Castillo. Clean slide. A little late. Sorry, maybe a little late by Castillo. But after that play, did you see Wright? He went over to Valdespin and kind of pushed him in the chest. Way to go. Way to stand in there.
Well, David has tried very hard to integrate Jordani Valdespin into this team. He's the captain, and he knows that, you know, it's his responsibility to make sure that everybody in that clubhouse is on the same page. And, you know, as Kevin talked about last night, Valdespin's trying to listen. He's trying to hear. Here's Feldman, a dangerous hitter. He's already got 6 RBIs this year. 2 of those with 1 swing against the Mets, a 2-run double. He also has a home run. Hit that against Bronson Arroyo a couple of weeks ago.
That was a Ruthian swing right there, wasn't it? Got the right pine tar. Almost looks like a hitter.
Well, Feldman has 6 RBIs. Only one pitcher in baseball has more, and that's his teammate Travis Wood, who we know is a legit hitter. Homered against the Mets in that series in Chicago. Wood did. Darwin Barney would be next. Feldman can't connect on that fastball. It's 1-2.
You know, Feldman reminds me, there was a guy in the Cubs in my day, Rick Sutcliffe, of course. You know Gary. You've worked with Rick. Great guy. But he was the same kind of hitter. Big guy and could flat out hit.
And Niese gets him with the cutter to end the inning. Second strikeout for John Niese, and the Cubs strand a pair in the second. No score at Citi Field. an errant return toss to the mound that cost him a base in the first inning and then a couple of base runners in the second. But able to work out of both situations. Now Scott Feldman will face the Mets at the bottom of the second. You know, we've talked a lot this year about the lack of run support that Matt Harvey in particular has gotten, but really all the Met pitchers have fallen victim since the first few weeks of the season. How would you like to have been Chris Sale pitching for the White Sox last night?
Right?
8 innings, no earned runs, 1 walk, 14 strikeouts, losing pitcher.
That complete game. This is on the road. And plus that White Sox team, I mean, that's what they do. They're supposed to hit. Adam Dunn and Rios and the gang. Put it on the board.
Mets will get another look at the White Sox on this upcoming road trip. 2 games
That's
at
right.
U.S. Cellular Field. A little confusing. Mets are play the White Sox, they play the Cubs, they play the White Sox again, play the Cubs again.
Well, one thing I know for certain, that ride from the north side or the south side is still going to be bad to the airport.
We haven't been at U.S. Cellular, which I think was not even called U.S. Cellular the last time we were there, since 2002, I think. The only trip the Mets have made to that ballpark. Well, the Cubs overshift against Duda as they have in every at bat for Lucas this year. And the first pitch curveball misses from Feldman. One time last night, Duda ran his hand up the bat handle as though he were going to lay down a bunt and take advantage of that open left side. But he never did. Justin Turner on deck, then Anthony Recker here in the second.
And again, like last night, Valbuena, who was playing third base, moved to the right side of second base. Cody Ransom has now moved over.
Ransom just to the right of second base. Barney, the second baseman, out in short right field. Duda pops one up. Castro shading his eyes and stays with it. No sunglasses necessary, I guess. 1 out.
Well, he did block the sun with his glove, but it's interesting that he doesn't have any sunglasses at all. Not a smart move.
Certainly a day that would seem to require the flip downs because it is partly cloudy and the sun has been darting in and out.
Now what happens is if you're an infielder, you're a little embarrassed to ask the trainers to send one out.
You don't want to go out in the middle of the inning.
Yeah.
Maybe wait till next inning. See, Barney's got the flip downs.
Yep.
The fact that he never makes an error, wouldn't that be the guy you'd want to follow? Justin Turner takes a strike.
Soriano has the flip downs, old school.
Sweeney's got the wraparounds, as does Hairston.
I don't think Hairston looks like he's got the Maui Jims. They're very nice looking.
Feldman handles the comebacker, and Turner's retired, 2 out.
What Feldman, when you see all that movement, when you watch his motion, not too much put into it. Not a lot of push off, not a lot of movement, but see, he has that little delay, hides the baseball, 3/4 arm action, and you see how he gets on the outside of that baseball? That's how he gets that cutter. That's pretty cool. Nice angle.
Here's Anthony Recker with 2 out and nobody on. Recker making his 11th start of the season.
Watch his hand as he releases. The 3/4, elbows leading, and just can see those fingers wrapping around that ball to force it to go from right to left if you're a right-hander.
Recker, who played some for the Cubs last year, takes a strike. Anthony had big league time with Oakland and with Chicago. Ball and a strike to Recker. And he takes a fastball strike on the outside, and it's 1-2.
And you see the freeze of how he lets it go. That chest is kind of facing the plate. That front foot is angled right at home plate.
1-2. Just missed. 2-2 to Recker. Juan Lagares would be next.
You know, more importantly, Vic Carapazza behind the plate is giving him that low strike.
And Recker lays off on a full count. We saw the other day Greg Gibson behind the plate getting very, very low, making that call from the inside shoulder of the catcher.
Well, let's see Carapazza. He gets down there pretty low also.
Recker pops it up, and again Castro not wearing sunglasses. Barney comes over in case he needs help, but he doesn't, and that retires the side. And we'll see next inning whether Starlin decides to come out with some shades, if only to style, you know. No score after 2. Local Chevy dealer at ChevyOffers.com. Text your answer to 56812. For many years, June 15th, it's June 15th today, was the trading deadline in Major League Baseball, so we figured it was a good time to ask this question. Best trade acquisition in Mets history. It's a tough group to choose from.
Wow.
Mex and the Kid, Johnny Franco, and Mike Piazza. Text 56812. Now, 30 years ago today was the day the Mets acquired Keith Hernandez from the Cardinals, June 15th, 1983. June 15th has had its high points for the Mets and its very, very lowest point. That was the lowest point, 1977, when on June the 15th they traded Tom Seaver to the Reds. Turner in front of Barney's ground ball, and he throws him out, one away. And of course, in 1969, the Mets acquired Don Clendenin, which helped them to their World Series that year. Neil Allen and Rick Ownby.
Neil was the closer, right, for the Mets in those days. Rick Ownby, I played with in AAA. He was called up in '82, I believe, the first time. And Ownby was the guy I told you that could throw a frisbee with his toes.
Which is a wonderful talent to have, but I'm not quite sure how it, affects your ability to perform well on a baseball field. Cody Ransom swings and misses at a changeup, 0-1. The interesting thing, of course, about the Mets trading Neil Allen in 1983 is then they make the trade for Gary Carter, and Carter, in his first game at Shea, hits the game-winning home run off Neil Allen, who's then pitching for the Cardinals.
Hanging curveball. Neil was a local kid, wasn't he? Was he from New York or no? No, maybe not. I think maybe he's a Kansas City kid or something.
We'll look it up.
He just lived on the island in his playing days. High-spirited, high-pitched voice. Great guy. Always nice to me, I'll tell you that.
One and two to Cody Ransom. Ward High School in Kansas City, Missouri.
You know, some guys you remember and you just laugh. Neil's one of those guys. A pitching coach for someone in minor leagues.
Ransom had a base hit his first time up, and he rips that one foul.
You know,
gotta pay attention.
You mentioned that Don Clendenin trade. I was just doing some research on it. I saw that Montreal wanted to trade him that January to Houston. And he said no. So he would not have been out there for the Mets later.
He said he was going to retire if they traded him, and so he refused the deal.
Well, the Cubbies know a little bit about June 15 trades. In 1964, they traded an outfielder that was hitting .241 at that point, striking out a lot. And they said, you know what, we're going to trade Lou Brock to the Cardinals for Ernie Broglio. Broglio had won 20 games in 60, 18 games in 63. And all Brock did down the stretch in 64 for the World Series champions Cardinals was hit almost .350 and steal 33 bags.
One thing Brock had done for the Cubs before he was traded, he became one of, I think, 3 players ever to hit a home run to center field at the Polo Grounds, 505 feet away. And he wasn't known as a power hitter. Off the rubber and into center field, a base hit for Cody Ransom, and he's 2 for 2. Third hit given up by John Niese.
You know, Keith always talks about what a leader Lou Brock is, but isn't it amazing when you look at this base hit up the middle? You know, John doesn't get in a fielding position, so anything at his feet will not be able to field it. What maturity it takes when you're a guy who has power and you decide to eschew it to be better for the team. Get on base, base hits, steal bases.
Castro took a call third strike his first time up. No sunglasses at the plate. Last year, more RBIs as a Cubs shortstop than anybody since Ernie Banks, who was, you know, for folks who don't remember Ernie Banks and remember the confluence of great hitting shortstops in the American League, over the last 2 decades when you had Jeter and Nomar and A-Rod,
Ripken.
Banks was the first real big home run hitting offensive shortstop. 2-time MVP.
Wow.
Eventually got moved to first base at the end of his career, but never lost his enthusiasm for the game. He was Mr. Cub. He was let's play 2. Now I wonder, in the age of the 3.5 hour game, whether Ernie would still have his enthusiasm for doubleheaders the way he did.
I'm sure he would. I mean, I've gotten to spend time with him. He just is about the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Here's the 1-2 to Castro, and he struck him out. High fastball. And so Niese fans Castro for the second time, his 3rd strikeout of the day.
Castro looks a little late on the fastball so far in this series. This ball beats him upstairs.
And that's really the scouting report on Castro. When he first came up, pitchers did what pitchers do to young players, threw him a lot of breaking balls, and he's a terrific breaking ball hitter. Maybe not a great fastball hitter.
You just have to, when you get ahead, not throw strikes to him. That's the key.
Here's Soriano with 2 out and a runner at first. Hit a slow ground ball to third and right threw him out his first time up. And he rips that one, low bridging David Bell. 0-1.
Talking about June 15th, 75 years ago, Mr. Billy Williams was born, so he's 75 today. One of the great Cubs of all time.
Maybe as underrated a player as there's ever been. Because, you know, he played on those Cub teams with guys like Ernie Banks and Ron Santo, who were much more colorful players than he was, but what a great player. 1,117 consecutive games.
And a blue-collar guy, right? Just went out there with his lunch bucket every day.
Soriano drives one toward the gap. Lagares over, makes the backhand catch. Lagares closing ground in a hurry to take an extra base hit away from Soriano and probably save a run. Lagares showing off his closing speed. Made a very hard play look pretty easy. And that gets Niese through the third. Still no score.
As far as the fans go, I mean, I've given them a great number of thrills, and they've been equally returned. And the ovation I got the other night.
You're going to miss them, Tom?
Not only would Seaver miss the fans would miss him. And the same could be said of Dave Kingman, who was also traded the same night. It was an emotional transformation, and June 15th, 1977 will forever be remembered as the Midnight Massacre.
Come on, George.
Lagares lays down a bunt and Feldman throws him out. I had not heard that dramatic footage with the intonation of the announcer. That
I have not either. And then the end when he says to himself, "Come on, George," which means get it together. Let's go.
Well, he made reference to the fact that the fans had given him a great ovation in his last start because it was not a spur-of-the-moment thing that the Mets decided to trade Seaver. He and M. Donald Grant, who at that time was the chairman of the board of the Mets, had been feuding for more than a year. And it seemed almost inevitable when it happened, but the reality of it really struck home. And the fact that the Mets also did not get a return for Seaver that you would expect for the best pitcher in baseball after 10.5 seasons also stung the Met fan. And I'll never forget later that summer, Seaver came back to pitch at Shea for the Reds, and there was a huge crowd on hand, and he was cheered from start to finish,
really,
as though he were still a hometown player, in a way that I've only seen one other time in sports in New York, when the Rangers traded Ed Giacomin to the Red Wings, and he got toasted the same way on his return. Feldman handles the comebacker from Niese for the second out, but fortunately Seaver was able to have a second act with the Mets.
1983 when he came back. Jackman, I think, used to talk about it, that he was standing in the crease and he was crying, tears.
Well, they were serenading him.
Yeah.
Give the Eddie chant for
That's awesome.
many minutes. Here's Valdespin, who's had himself a rough afternoon so far, throwing error in the first inning on a toss back to the mound, got upended at second base, trying to execute a double play, and then struck out in his only at bat in the bottom of the first. 2 out and nobody on, and Valdespin takes a curveball for a strike.
I never came back to play at Shea Stadium, only at Yankee Stadium once I was moved to Oakland. And I remember I was out shagging before the game, and one of the Yankee fans yelled out to me, "Hey, welcome to the American League, Ronnie. You're still a bum." I figured I was back in New York.
That is an ugly hack by Valdespin, and it's 0-2.
He's really controlling the speed of Valdespin's bat, isn't he, Feldman? He's had a lot of awkward swings.
Swung at a cutter that almost hit him in the first at bat, then swung at one up in his eyes. And fouls this one off the home plate umpire Vic Carapazza. It stung.
You see, Castillo asked him if he's all right. He's shaking it off. When you're a young umpire, you got to shake it off. Boy, right off that left collarbone. You could hear him up here wince.
We mentioned Carapazza, a hometown guy from Port Jefferson. David DeJesus was saying after the game last night that he has now been hurt in New York 3 different times, twice at Yankee Stadium and once here last night, and his parents were here every time.
Jeez.
They don't want to come home anymore.
That's right.
Here's the 0-2 to Valdespin, and he tries to hold on a pitch in the dirt, and he gets a pass from Gary Cederstrom.
That story you told about Seaver when he pitched here and he was serenaded by the fans or clapped for every inning. Did M. Donald Grant come to that game?
That's a really good question.
We've got these 2 guys, Met fans up here. No one knows the answer.
There's DeJesus in the dugout. You see his arm in a sling under that sweatshirt. Valdespin moves out of the way, 2-2. I'm sure if Mr. Grant was in the building that day, he was not
visible
out in public.
Yeah.
Two from Feldman to Valdespin, and the curveball misses, and Giordani has worked it full.
Sure, I could do some research on this. Anyone write a book about that year or 6 months or that whole back and forth?
If there was, I haven't read it.
Huh.
It would be fascinating, though.
Wouldn't it?
Well, not just, Seaver and Grant, but also Dick Young's involvement, the columnist for the Daily News, who took the Met management side.
And when it got personal, for some of the families of the players.
Well, there was intimation of jealousy between the wives of Tom Seaver and Nolan Ryan, which, as far as I know, wasn't true.
Yeah.
But that stuff was written, and that really exacerbated some of the hard feelings. 8th pitch of the at-bat coming from Feldman to Valdespin, and a high fly ball to center. Should be easy for Sweeney. And that retires the side. 7 in a row retired by Scott Feldman. We are through 3 at Citi Field. Niese and Feldman both pitching well. No score. of what you want in the morning. More news, more weather, more fun. The Pix 11 Morning News, weekday morning starting at 4 a.m. And if you can have fun at 4 a.m., there's definitely a strong pot of coffee in your kitchen.
I certainly have had fun at 4 a.m. I pitched in the game at 4 a.m.
Right, but I'm talking about getting up at 4 a.m.
Oh, I'm not there.
It's a whole different story. You know, I had a time in my life where I worked in morning drive radio.
Oh, you did?
Had to get up at 3 in the morning.
Oh.
There's nothing good about it. Sorry.
I hosted Good Morning America for 1 week.
There you go.
And that's getting up 3:30. Nothing like makeup at 4. That's fun.
Well, you don't. At least in radio, we didn't have that.
It was.
But you tried to sound cheery when you got on the air. I think 5:45 was our first sportscast.
I was trying to think. I had the interview with. I mean, I had tons of interviews the whole week, but my first is Little Richard.
Wow! Now, did he have energy at 5 in the morning?
Rock that at 7:15. No,
really?
Good Morning America. Yeah. So 7 o'clock it comes on, and he had to rock Little Richard at 7:15. He had plenty of energy.
And he had to be, what, 70 years old at the time?
Exactly.
2-2 to Anthony Rizzo leading off the 4th inning. And Niese throws a curveball low. 3-2. It's been an uneven beginning for Niese. He's held the Cubs off the board, but he's had trouble to negotiate in every inning so far. The Cubs have stranded 4 runners in the first 3 innings. And Rizzo draws a walk to start the 4th. Second walk given up by Niese. Scott Hairston will come up with a man on, and we check in with Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin?
You know, we've talked about the defense in center field, the Juan Lagares making that great catch in the last inning, and we've talked about the June offensively that Marlon Byrd has had. He's doing a nice job with the power, driving, and runs. I think the surprise, though, has been Byrd in right field. He's played a pretty solid right field and showed a very good arm out there. As a matter of fact, remember that game back in Wrigley that we'll show you after this pitch to Hairston, where he saved a game for Matt Harvey and the Mets, where he threw out Darwin Barney on an absolute seed from right field. Let's take a look. This is the 8th inning, that Friday afternoon game at Wrigley. Barney's trying to score. He's out by a country mile. And Byrd has 4 assists on the year. That's actually in the top 10 in the National League. He's really had that arm working. I asked him about it. He said, you know, right now, at this point in my career, my arm's the best it's ever been, and I have Pudge Rodriguez to thank. I said, what? So back in 09, we were teammates in Texas, and I was just out there doing my long toss, and Pudge comes up to me and said, weren't you a catcher when you were younger? And Marlon said, yeah, a while ago I was. He said, well, you have to get back to throwing like a catcher. He said, you're way too long on your throws. Shorten up. Use your legs. Marlon said, ever since then, my arm's been a million times better. Guys?
Recker blocks it. Murphy with the tag, and he missed him. And Rizzo gets back to first. Recker did a great job blocking it and firing it down to Murphy, but Rizzo able to elude the tag and get back.
Well, one here, nice block by Recker on a tough pitch, catches it in the air, fires it to Murph. Now, what you have to do if you're the first baseman, Murph is trying to reach for the runner. What you have to do in that case, just reach for the bag. Put the glove right in front of the bag. He's got to be there at some point. Nice job by the big man Rizzo, though, eluding the tag.
And a good call by Lance Barrett, the first base umpire, to see that there was no tag. And now Hairston draws a walk, so back-to-back walks by Niese to start the 4th inning. Little plays not made have been bedeviling the Mets. I mean, they've got an offense that struggles to score, and their margin for error is so small, and this is an out that you've just got to get. Now, why is Murph just standing still? Why doesn't he get back to the bag at that point?
Well, I thought he's thinking that the runner's going. He's trying to help Recker by saying he's going a second. But once he came back, he was a little out of position. But again, though, you know, with experience, just throw that glove in front of the bag. He's going to be there at some point.
So now 2 aboard for Wellington Castillo with nobody out, and he takes a strike. Castillo drew a walk his first time up. Cubs are 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position today. 229 for the year, which is the 3rd lowest in the major leagues. Rizzo at second, Hairston at first. Not a whole lot of speed out there, although Rizzo runs better than you'd think for a big guy. He's trying to find his rhythm. It's been a slog for him so far through 3 innings plus. And he gets Castillo with the cutter. That's the first down of the inning. There's a big out for Niese with the 8 and 9 hitters coming up. His 4th strikeout.
You know, Gary, I don't know if it's day games after night games. I don't know how you explain some of these at-bats you'll get with runners on base. Just a futile swing there by Castillo.
So 1 out. Now Ryan Sweeney, who grounded into a fielder's choice his first time up. 1st and 2nd and 1 out with the pitcher on deck. And he takes a first pitch curve for a strike, and that's good to see from Niese. And maybe the first curveball he's thrown in the strike zone today.
In a 100-pitch game, he used to throw 30. Now he's down to about 10 to 12.
Can you explain that?
I can't explain it. I have no idea how that has happened.
Weak ground ball down to first. Murph will have to settle for the out at first base. 2 out in the inning, and the runners move to 2nd and 3rd. I mean, John Niese does not get to the major leagues without that curveball.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be funny by saying I have no idea. You know, I've talked to many people about it. I've talked to John about it. It's such a great weapon. It's almost it makes no sense to me that you wouldn't use it. But I think he gets into a game, he gets locked into throwing his cutter and jamming guys. I totally understand that. But there's circumstances like here where you need an out, where it'd be a great weapon.
Feldman batting with 2 in scoring position. It's not been as good a year for John in these run scoring situations. Generally, over the course of his career, he had been deadly in these spots. And Feldman has another big hit against the Mets. Rizzo is in, Hairston right behind him. Scott Feldman had a 2-run double in Chicago. He has a 2-run single here to put the Cubs in front 2-0. His 7th and 8th runs batted into the year, the most of any pitcher in the major leagues.
Well, he started with the fastball inside that really fooled him, then came back with a cutter away. Decent pitch as far as on the corner, but the ball is up, and it allows Feldman to just dump that ball into center field.
Well, Murphy's failure to make the tag on Rizzo at first base on the pickoff, a couple of walks by Niese, and all of a sudden the Cubs have 2 runs on the board on a 2-out hit by the pitcher. Now Darwin Barney, who has grounded to short in each of his first 2 at-bats. Feldman's only got 6 hits this year, but he's got 8 RBIs, so he has had hits at the right time.
He's 1 ahead of his teammate now, right? Travis Wood has 7 RBI.
Ball and a strike to Barney. .22 RBIs for Cub pitchers. Feldman with 8. Wood with 7. No other team has more than 10.
It'll give your everyday players a inferiority complex.
Well, the Cubs are in the bottom half of the league in runs scored. Think where they'd be if it weren't for their pitchers. Dale Swim will take a run any way he can get it. Now Niese ahead on Barney 1 and 2. He struck out 4 today, and Barney makes contact. Darwin Barney, part of the College World Series championship team at Oregon State, teammate of Eddie Coons.
Won 2 years in a row, right?
Just off the corner, 2 and 2. Our director Dan Barr hates when we mention that. You know, he's an Oregon guy.
Oh. Well, he'd be fighting words if we were talking about football.
Saying Ducks baseball is not a big sport.
It's, you know, it doesn't harbor the same resentment if we were talking about the, you know, we'd have to go Ducks at some point to cover them.
And we could talk about their atrocious uniforms. green, a little yellow. Barney slugs one deep left field, right down the line toward the pole. Foul ball. Just missed. Well back in the stands. Barney, who's hit just 2 home runs this year, hit the tar out of that ball, but just missed a home run.
Wow, that's as close as I've seen one in some time.
That almost shaved the pole. Eighth pitch of the at bat coming from Niese, and the curveball blooped down the right field line, and that's going to fall in for a base hit. Feldman to second. He's trying for third. Bird's long throw, right with the tag, and he's safe. Feldman loping from first to third, and we showed you Bird's arm earlier in the inning, and he nearly got himself another one, but Feldman arrived safely. A bloop hit for Darwin Barney.
Well, almost a home run on a great swing, and then just a ladle swing out to right field. Kind of didn't surprise Bird, maybe a little bit. Makes the accurate throw, but good hustle by Feldman and getting through the leg of David Wright with that headfirst slide.
David had that base blocked, but Feldman, fortunately for him, not using his throwing arm to try and get around that foot, using his left arm.
I find it very interesting that Feldman, the pitcher, all 6'7", 6'8" of them, he's hustling from first to third, plays at third base, takes a while for it to finish, and Barney, the second baseman who hit the ball, is in at second base.
That's a good point. That ball took about 6 or 7 hops on its way to third base.
Well, he's got the left arm in there. The right arm goes around the bag to keep it safe.
Of course, he doesn't keep it safe when he bats. He's a right-hand pitcher, but a left-hand hitter. Always worry about pitchers exposing their pitching arm. So that wasn't Marlin's best throw, and the Cubs keep the inning alive. First and third for Cody Ransom, who's 2 for 2 today. And the curveball misses low, ball 1. So this has been a very rough inning for Niese, who sidestepped trouble in each of the first 3 innings, but he's already thrown 27 pitches here in the 4th, and now up to 82 pitches, and behind in the game 2-0. A big batter to get here. Ransom lays off another breaking ball, and it's 2-0. Starlin Castro would be next. Niese has been so sharp lately. Not today. And just trying to fight his way through. Gets a generous call there, and it's 2-1. That changeup is still very much a work in progress for John Niese. That's his 4th pitch.
Do you find Valdespin playing extremely up the middle on Ransom?
Well, we saw the same thing earlier with Barney. You know, a guy who's going to hit the ball to all fields.
And then Craig in the Cardinal series. I just think he's too far up the middle. You know, Ransom is got some pop, but you know, he's the kind of guy that just looking for any kind of hit. John, if he pitches on the outside part, it's a pretty easy mark for him to go that way.
Well, especially with 2 strikes in an RBI situation, you would expect Ransom to be looking to take the ball to right field. He's trying to put this inning to bed, and he throws the curveball low, and it's 3-2. So we were talking about that curveball. Niese has thrown 3 of them in this at bat and has yet to throw a strike with it.
You can see his body language too, the frustration John's feeling. Got to kind of wipe that slate clean. You don't want the other team to see that.
He's walked 3 today, including 2 in this inning. Barney will be running from first. Feldman the runner at third. 3-2 and 2 down. And another curveball, and that misses. Ball 4, 3rd walk of the inning, and the 4th of the afternoon for John Niese.
Well, interesting choice there. I said in this inning, I'd love to see him use his curveball more, but with Castro on deck and Ransom up at the plate, you'd want to really challenge Ransom.
So now the inning deepens. 2 runs in, bases loaded, 2 out, and the number 3 hitter Starlin Castro, whom Niese has dominated so far today. Feldman at third, Barney at second, Ransom at first. Castro struck out looking in the first, swinging in the third. Biggest out of the game for Niese to get. And Castro swings and pops the first one foul, out of play. Starlin Castro 0 for 6 in this series. He's struck out each of his last 3 at bats. John had done a great job the last couple of years lowering his walk rate, but this year has been a different story. 3 walks in this inning. Soriano would be next. And Castro takes the fastball high, 1-1. It has been a theme of John Niese's career, the struggle to minimize big innings. And he's right in that spot here in the 4th. Good cut by Castro, and he fouls it back 1-2.
Good swing here by Castro, middle of the plate. Still a little late to the ball. It's been moved up and down the order, now back in that second hole. Well, third hole today, sorry.
Niese has been effective against him, throwing that fastball upstairs. That's where Recker wants it, and he strikes him out again. Side retired. Third time Castro's been struck out today. The Cubs get 2 on the hit by Feldman, but they leave him loaded. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Chrysler, imported from Detroit. 2-0 Cubs in the 4th. Chevy text poll, we asked who was the best trade acquisition in Mets history. I'm not sure that Keith will ever get over this. He finished second. Mike Piazza was not acquired at the trading deadline. He was a May acquisition by the Mets in 1998. And people forget this, but Mike struggled through the middle of the summer that year, and he heard boos at Shea Stadium. And remember, he was a free agent at the end of that year, and there was some speculation that because Met fans were booing their new superstar, that maybe he'd opt to sign elsewhere when the year ended, but he wound up signing a 7-year deal with the Mets.
The money tends to silence the boos, Gary.
Scott Feldman has staked himself to a 2-0 lead. His 2-run single putting the Cubs on top, but John Niese got the out he absolutely positively had to get by striking out Castro.
I think Keith would tell us with that text poll that most of his fans really don't spend a lot of time texting. So
it's a generational thing.
Yes.
That would be one argument.
Although he texts.
Yes, he does. But, you know, he's always been ahead of the curve. He's a leader of his generation. Whatever generation that might be. Now that looks good. I love the hat.
I know, on both the dad and the son. Stylish.
They're kind of like the inverse of each other.
I would never be able to buy a hat. I spent my life in hats. Oh.
Different kind of hat.
Mickey's Club.
Daniel Murphy leads off the home fourth inning and takes outside for ball one. You know, we never mentioned the passing of Annette Funicello.
That's right.
Talk about cultural icon of our childhood.
Those beach movies, they seem so silly now, don't they?
Frankie Avalon?
Yep.
Call strike to Murphy, 1-1. But, of course, Annette began her career as a Mouseketeer. Feldman hasn't allowed a hit. He's walked one, struck out two. And Murphy lays off. 2-1. David Wright on deck, then Marlon Byrd. Murphy and Wright sitting well ahead of the rest of their teammates on the hit leaderboard.
Oh, I like the current pace. Very good, guys.
I like that graphic. Very nice with it. The images, the focus. Murphy drives one to left, sending Soriano back, and it's over his head and off the 358. Murphy racing for second. Soriano's throw arrives too late, and Murphy able to hang on to the bag. 20th double of the year for Daniel Murphy. Soriano, who threw out David Wright at third base last night, came pretty close to getting Murphy here.
If it had been on the bag, it would have gotten Murphy. But great hitting. You know, the authority in which Murphy is going to left field this year is just so much better than in the past. And Murphy, you know, he's always chugging, arms moving. Key is he doesn't come past the bag as Barney stayed with him.
See guys in that situation come off the bag and get tagged out.
They're running so hard to get there.
So the Mets get the tying run to the plate with David Wright, who walked his first time up. He has now reached base in 8 consecutive plate appearances. And bailing out on the curveball. It's a strike, 0-1.
There you go, Murph. Murph, the last couple of seasons, is with everyone as far as doubles are concerned.
Now that's great. But what about Manny Machado? He's got 30 to lead
he's
the
8
major
clear.
leagues.
Yeah.
And he's 20 years old. Fastball strike, and it's 0-2 to Wright. I mean, think about that. 20 years old, not even close to halfway through the season, and Machado's got 30 doubles.
And at the Capital Beltway, they're always talking about the other 20-year-old player.
There goes Murphy. The pitch off the glove of Castillo, and Murphy steals third.
Well, we mentioned Feldman as a guy you can run on, and Murph had that base stolen even if Castillo caught the ball. His third stolen base of the year.
Well, Feldman doesn't pay a lot of attention to runners on base. And here with that big leg kick, big arm action, Castillo tries to rush it and misses the ball.
So the Mets have a runner at third with nobody out. A 1-2 count to Wright. The Cubs will keep the infield back with a 2-0 lead. Remember, they brought the infield in with a 5-0 lead last night. And Wright hits it well to right center field, chasing Hairston back onto the warning track near the wall, off the fence. Murphy in to score, right into second base with an RBI double, and the Mets are on the board. It's 2-1. David Wright continues to get on base every time up. That's 9 straight plate appearances, and this one drives in a run.
Well, really, for the last 2-3 weeks, it's been the Daniel David show, hasn't it? Murph with the stolen base after the double. David high off the right field wall that Hairston can't come up with a play. Boy, that's a foot away from being a home run, maybe less. Less. And the Mets are on the board.
So the Mets have a run on the board. Wright's in scoring position with nobody out. Marlon Byrd will try and get him around. Byrd struck out his first time up. David tying a career high now by reaching base 9 straight times. 7 hits and 2 walks in that span, and he's pushed his batting average right to 300. So the Mets finally score against Feldman, who had held the Mets scoreless for 9 2/3 over 2 starts. And Byrd takes the cutter off the plate, ball 1.
That's interesting. I saw this when Ransom was here with San Diego, playing even with the bag on the grass with Wright on second base and cleanup hitter up Byrd. There'll be no bunt here.
You certainly wouldn't expect it. Not the way Bird's been swinging the bat. And Feldman gets the outside corner, 1-1. So the Mets picking up back-to-back doubles against Feldman after he had a strenuous trip around the bases. Chugged from first to third on a base hit. Had to make a sprawling slide to get in there safely. 1-1 to Byrd with Duda on deck. One and 2.
Again, supposed to be outside, but good sinker down and in to Marlin.
Feldman has struck out 2. They both came in the first inning. Right at second and nobody out. And Byrd takes it low. 2-2. By the way, Met club record for consecutive times reaching base. I'm almost certain, you're looking it up, but I'm almost certain it belongs to John Olerud. And I believe it was 15 consecutive plate appearances. Confirm that in a moment. Now the 2-2, low and away, and Feldman, after getting ahead in the count, goes 3-2. Olerud 15 straight plate appearances in 1998. That's the year he hit .354 to set a Mets club record.
Couldn't run a lick, too.
Not a lick. Slower than Dave Magadan.
No.
Yeah.
Come on.
Really?
Mags is going to take a.
And Byrd out on strikes. Feldman goes to the curveball to get him. His third strikeout, and that's the first out of the inning.
All those pitches down and in as Marlin tapping his head saying I shouldn't have swung at that pitch out of the strike zone. But a good breaking ball. Had the appearance of a strike. Good rotation outside of the strike zone.
So 1 away. Wright still at second. And now Lucas Duda, who popped a short his first time up. Lucas had a base hit with a runner in scoring position last night to drive in a run. Got a chance to tie the game with a hit here. And the curveball outside for ball 1. Certainly Lucas has been far more effective against right-hand pitchers this year.
You know, I was talking to Terry Collins before the game today, and he was just raving about that 2-strike hit that Duda got to left field over the shortstop position, which is vacated right now by Castro.
Well, I know it's something that Dave Hodges has been talking to all of the Met hitters about these runners in scoring positions approach, which was very good the first couple of weeks of the season and really has not been since.
Listen, you want Lucas to hit home runs, but drive-in runs is the key. All you need right here is a single. If he pitches you away, go that way.
focus, pops it up, shallow left. Who's going to get it? Soriano coming in to call, and he's got it. 2 out. So Duda is retired. Wright still at second with 2 away, and it's left to Justin Turner. Back-to-back doubles by Murphy and Wright to start the inning. That's getting a run on the board, but leaving some food on the table. Turner, who has had a reputation the last couple of years for being a terrific hitter with runners in scoring position, has not been so far this season. Just 3 for 18.
Well, Justin's got to be thinking about this opportunity, though, to get some more playing time with some better quality at bats.
Getting the start at shortstop today against a right-hand pitcher, which was a bit of a surprise. And he takes the curveball for a strike. And there is graphically what we're talking about. Oh, 1 from Feldman, and he misses low and away. The ball and a strike. Anthony Recker would be next. The Cubs 2 runs and 5 hits. The Mets 1 run and 2 hits. Both the hits have come here in the 4th. And Turner takes a strike. 1 and 2. See, now that's a pitch where Turner, and we've seen it a lot in the 3 years he's been with the Mets, would take that ball to right field. That was his game in RBI situations.
You watch Turner his last few at bats, Gary, in these situations. He's been kind of rolling over that breaking ball. And you're right. When he is right, he's hitting that ball to right field with 2 strikes.
Two from Feldman. And Turner trying to go to right, fouls it away. By far Feldman's toughest inning, 22 pitches under his belt. And Turner takes outside, full count.
Well, we've seen Soriano last night. He has an underrated arm, lots of assists the last 3 seasons. Sweeney's got an excellent arm in center field, and we've watched Scott Hairston here does not have a very good arm in right field.
Soriano's assist last night was his 6th of the season. He's up among the league leaders. 3-2 coming from Feldman to Turner, and Justin bounces one slowly toward third, a foul ball. First start in 17 days for Justin Turner. Of course, he had what felt like a start last Saturday. 6 plate appearances after coming off the bench in that 20-inning game. Right at the shortstop, and Castro scoops it up. High throw, but Rizzo comes down in the bag, and the side retired. Back-to-back doubles by Murphy and Wright. Those have been the 2 reliable bats in the Mets lineup all season. David Wright on base for the 9th straight time. His 36th RBI gets the Mets on the board. It's 2-1. But it could have been worse. He struck out Castro with the bases loaded.
Well, pitch sequence, that's a pretty funny term, because when you watch John Niese when he's at his best, every pitch plays off the other. The problem for John right now is that he has an inside target, he doesn't hit it. He has an outside target, he throws it in. He's got a target down, the ball's up. So when you're a pitcher like John, you want a pitch that cut her in to go fastball away. Fastball up and then counter with a curveball. Everything works off the last pitch. That has not been the case because he's been a little erratic.
Alfonso Soriano leading off the fifth.
There's a sign right there, right? The ball's supposed to be down and away, misses the target by 2 feet.
He's been off all day, but only 2 runs behind. Rizzo and Hairston to follow. Soriano grounds one to third. Right with a long throw to make, and does so perfectly to get Soriano one away.
I'll tell you, I've been marveling at David's arm the last week. You know, this throw a couple of years ago, he would have got rid of it like a hot potato to get it over to first base. Now he's standing tall, just like a quarterback, and firing a seed to first base. Great mechanics.
Knew he had time because Soriano doesn't run well, and made the play perfectly. One out. Anthony Rizzo flies one to right field. Marlon Byrd looking through the sunglasses. Side saddles it to avoid the sun, and there are 2 out. That is a veteran outfielder.
A veteran, but usually they turn the other way where their front shoulder is kind of, glove shoulder is blocking it, or side saddle, but he opened up the other way. Whatever it takes.
Right field is the Sun Field at Citi Field. It's different at Shea Stadium. The sun set directly behind home plate. Here it's more behind third base. Stadium turned just a little bit.
What a beautiful shot.
Scott Hairston, the batter. So Niese has a chance for his first 1-2-3 inning of the day. Hairston has been aboard twice with a single and a walk.
This stadium's turned a little more to the north, and Shea was more to the west.
Now you got me all confused.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm bad with that kind of stuff. I've never been a Magellan.
But you are gelling. Lagares waiting for that one to come down, and Niese has that elusive 1-2-3 inning. We are halfway through now at Citi Field. Cubs 2, Mets 1.
With the Major League Ball Club, and especially with the New York Mets, it is necessary to become a proficient baseball player in all departments. Al Jackson.
What do you consider the most important point in fielding your position as a pitcher?
Well, Ralph, the most important point is that when you follow through, you have to come to a complete stop, and with your both feet parallel with each other. So it's the worst thing you can do is be off balance because you can't go to your right or left. So if you can come to a complete stop with your both feet parallel, you'll be balanced to go each way.
Ronnie and I are both sitting here smiling, which you can't help but do when you see Al Jackson. And the great thing about that is that it's more than 50 years later, and Al looks exactly the same.
He does. We're getting older. He's not. You know, I've said it before to you fans. He was my mentor in professional baseball. Luckiest thing was to meet Al Jackson. And the great thing about his tutorials, because he had little stories to go with them, when he would talk to me about pitching on the outside corner, he would give you a story like, now, Ron, if all the fish are on the left side of the lake, then why are you on the right side of the lake? Get on the left side of the lake. And that's how he would teach me. And I just loved it. I should have written them all down and wrote a Al Jackson vignette book, anecdotal book.
You saw the overall numbers for Al as a Met, but they really didn't tell the story. He was the first Met ever to carry a no-hitter into the 7th inning. He had, in the first 3 years of the ball club, probably the signature pitching performance that came on the final weekend in 1964 when the Cardinals were battling for the pennant with the Phillies, and Al shut them out the Friday night on the last weekend of the season.
Wow.
He was, on a bad team, a reason to watch.
Wow.
Anthony Recker leading off in the home 5th against Scott Feldman. Recker popped to short his first time up. And a fastball strike, 2-1. Let's see. Did you do what Al taught? Oh, look at that. Look at that fielding position.
Ready to go. You have enough BBs hit up the middle, Gary, you will get in a position to defend yourself. Now, Al was just couldn't have had a nicer man who could at times read you the riot act because he expected only excellence from you because that's what he expected of himself.
Well, let's compare that defensive position to, say, oh, I don't know, Carlos Marmol. Not quite square to the plate.
He did not work with Al.
If he did, he didn't pay attention to that lesson. But even John Niese today, you know, you made the point earlier about falling off the mound and being unable to handle that ball back up the middle. Strike 3 called. Recker's out. 4th strikeout for Feldman, and the first out in the bottom of the 5th.
Can't help but be impressed with Feldman. You know, it doesn't have the stuff that you spit out of the computer and instant hit that he throws 95, but he hits the corners, he keeps the ball down, he changes speeds. There's a lot of different ways to have success at this level.
Now Juan Lagares, who tried to bunt his way on his first time up, but bunted it straight back to Feldman. John Niese is out on deck. Niese at 97 pitches through 5 innings, but he'll get one more. Last night, Sean Markham went 5 2/3. Mets have a lot of baseball games to play in a short period of time. With a day-night doubleheader looming Tuesday night in Atlanta, they may get some bullpen help back by then. Scott Atchison is working on rehab, and I asked Terry Collins today if he hopes to have Atchison back by Tuesday, and he said there's a pretty good chance of that as Atchison comes back from some elbow issues. Of course, Tuesday is going to be a special day because that's when Zach Wheeler makes his major league debut. He'll join the team in Atlanta on Monday, pitch the Tuesday night game after Matt Harvey goes Tuesday afternoon. And Lagares strikes out on the curveball in the dirt. Castillo makes the toss, 2 out. 5 strikeouts for Feldman. He gets back-to-back strikeouts to start the bottom of the 5th.
You know, this is a pitcher that's going to give the young Lagares trouble because he hasn't been able to identify the strike zone yet, and Feldman will take advantage of that.
Now John Niese, who hit a comebacker his first time up. The Cubs 2 runs and 5 hits. The Mets 1 run and 2 hits. Back-to-back doubles by Murphy and Wright to get a run home in the 4th. But otherwise, Feldman has been right on, as he was against the Mets at Wrigley Field a month ago. Jordani Valdespin would be next. And Niese cues one foul. 1-2. Feldman has been getting better and better as games have gone along this year. Batting average against him drops first time around to the second time around to the third time around the batting order, and that's a little unusual.
It's just the opposite of what we usually see, and I think it's because he is an extremely bright pitcher and kind of reacts off what the hitters are giving him. So if they're swinging the pitches out of the strike zone, that's where he'll start to go.
Runs a full count on the opposing pitcher. Feldman's walked only one. That was David Wright back in the first inning. His pitch count not quite as high as Niese's, but higher than he'd like working in the fifth. Sixth full count of the day for Feldman. And Niese goes down on strikes, and Feldman strikes out the side in the bottom of the fifth. 6 strikeouts for the Cubs right-hander. He has a 2-1 lead after 5. Brought to you by Nautica, available at Macy's. It's pre-Father's Day, Father's Day Eve, as it were, or as Keith would say, Father's Day weekend.
He's got a weekend. I know my son and I were both busy. I'm here. He's working tonight. So we're going to have breakfast at a diner tomorrow.
Perfect. That counts.
Yeah, I guess so.
Wellington with 1L. Castillo leads off in the 6th. I really was not aware until today that Wellington Castillo spelled his first name with only 1L.
So when you were in Chicago, did you put it down with 2 L's?
Well, I was trying to look him up in something online, and it didn't acknowledge he existed with 2 L's, which led me to figure out that it was only 1L. Castillo, however, has 2 L's. Because if Wellington had 2 L's, he might be Wayington.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
According to Spanish pronunciation. Niese knocks it down with his leg and gets Castillo with 1L, 1 away.
How many Met pitchers have been hit with comebackers of late? Dylan G had 2 or 3 of them. Matt Harvey had 1. And here, off the bat of Castillo, 1 hop.
Off the left hamstring, it looked like. No harm. So 1 out in the top of the 6th. Now Ryan Sweeney, who's 0 for 2. And the curveball in for a strike, 0-1. And Sweeney fouls it away, 0-2.
First pitch curveball for a strike to Castillo. First pitch curveball for a strike to Sweeney. So beautiful thing for John. It really is. It's, you know, and you can lose your way. It's not like you're, you know, not trying to incorporate all your pitches into it, but it's something he has got to use. It's too good.
Goes to that cutter outside. It's 2-2 to Sweeney.
You can equate it. Sid Fernandez used to get into that also, where he wouldn't use his curveball as much.
That's down the line, an extra base hit. That'll go all the way into the corner for Sweeney. Bird over to get it, and Sweeney pulls it to second base with a 1-out double. So Ryan Sweeney with his 5th double of the year. And the Cubs with their 6th hit of the afternoon.
Well, the last time he hit one to right field off the Mets in Chicago, he tried to go for 3 and it didn't work out, even though he was safe. So here he broke it on down. Just gets it inside where it stays down the line.
So now Feldman, who's driven in the 2 Chicago runs today, with a base hit in the 4th inning. Bats again with a runner in scoring position. Feldman now with 8 RBIs to lead all major league pitchers. Pops this one up. Should be playable for right, looking through the sunglasses. And there are 2 out. So Niese gets the big hitting pitcher for the 2nd out. Cubs now 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Feldman has the 1. And if Niese looks unhappy, that's because Terry Collins is on his way out to the mound. Darwin Barney is coming up. LaTroy Hawkins is ready in the bullpen, and Terry's taking the ball, and John doesn't want to give it to him.
Wow. Should give him the ball if he's out there.
So Niese is out after 5 2/3. LaTroy Hawkins will come in to replace him. Call to the bullpen is brought to you by Sprint. Cubs with a 2-1 lead in the 6th. And Niese reluctantly will take his exit. We'll be right back. Out of this game with 2 out in the 6th inning.
Well, you can see him with the glove on the bench, better than your hand.
LaTroy Hawkins comes in to face Darwin Barney, and he throws a strike to get him started. LaTroy came in against the Cardinals a couple of days ago, gave up hits to his first 2 batters. Try to avoid that circumstance here with a runner in scoring position and 2 out. Niese out after 106 pitches. He walked 4, which helped hasten his exit. 3 of those came in 1 inning. And Barney takes the slider, a ball and a strike. Barney is 1 for 3, hit a pop fly single to right his last time up. Mr. Met is smiling. John is not. Turner gets in front of the ground ball. So Hawkins gets the job done. Retires Barney to get the Mets through the top of the 6th. Now the top of the batting order comes up for the Mets in the bottom of the inning, down 2-1. Banana boat. Kids 12 and under can run the bases after the game against the Cubs with Mr. Met leading the way. He'll still be smiling. Get to Mets.com or call 718-507-TIXX for tickets. Now Terry Collins taking John Niese out with 2 out in the 6th and tries to explain his decision to John.
Well, it doesn't seem to me like John's as interested in Terry's passion there. What John has to remember, the at-bat prior. Do you remember Darwin Barney almost took him for a 2-run home run, just foul? Terry knows his offense is struggling, cannot take a chance on another great at-bat there. And I think if John had shown more during the game, he probably would have been left in there. Less walks, pitch counts down, all of those things.
Well, he did a great job limiting the Cubs to 2 runs, but he was erratic all afternoon. Top of the batting order, 3rd time through against Scott Feldman. Jordani Valdespin has struck out and flied out 0 for 2. Corners in against Jordani, and he takes a curveball for a strike.
You know, Gary, I hate to recount these times because they're not pleasant. But I was in John's situation a lot of times early in my career where Davey Johnson would take me out of the game, and I was angry too. And his explanation after the game would be, "You're better than that. That's why I had to take you out." And it hurt. It hurt. And I had to get better, and I did.
Well, you had the experience early in your career of walking a lot of people, and as you cut down on the walks, you were able to go deeper into games. Now, John had cut down his walks the last couple of years, but this year, they're up again. Valdespin pops one up.
Yeah, he's definitely taken a little step back as far as his control is concerned. Now, you know, is it the games early were kind of strange? Is it the tendonitis he had for a couple starts? You know, you could find tons of excuses for anything if you're a pitcher. And I'm not saying John's looking for excuses. He's not. But I'm saying you can find plenty if you want them out there. They just don't work on the field. They don't translate. There's no need to even have them. If you're on the field, that means you're 100%, even if you're not 100%, because that's how it counts.
Well, Niese, to his credit, had been in a pretty good groove these last 3 or 4 starts, even missing a start in there because of that shoulder tendonitis. But today was a different kind of game. Carlos Villanueva up in the Cubs bullpen. And the curveball misses to Valdespin, 2-2. Well, the Mets have used a plethora of different players in the leadoff spot this year, and they haven't gotten production out of any of them. Quintanilla gave them a couple of good days, and there have been a few other performances over the course of the year, but consistently that leadoff spot has been lacking. Out to center field, and Sweeney comes on. Valdespin now 0 for his last 15. It's almost like that leadoff spot's a black hole. You put everybody there and they get eclipsed. Did I just mix my celestial metaphors?
You did.
Well, the 2 and 3 spots in the batting order, these guys have been okay. Murphy and Wright. They combined for back-to-back doubles in the 4th against Feldman, the only 2 hits he's given up. Since then, he's retired 7 in a row. Murphy hit his double off the fence over Soriano's head in left field, stole third, and came in on Wright's double for the only Met run. And Murphy hits another one, this one deep to left center. Back goes Sweeney to the warning track to reel it in for the second out. And Murph continues to drive the ball to left and left center. Well, John Niese not the only one frustrated right now. Valdespin doesn't know where to throw that home.
You know, it's this is what happens. You know, when you're not winning at home, offense is dried up, can't find a hit. You know, this is your opportunity to shine. A lot of factors.
Well,
there.
also in Valdespin's case, you know, it's been pretty explicitly said, look, you have these 6 games. We're going to try you. We're going to put you in the leadoff spot. We're going to play you at second base, your natural position, and it hasn't gone well for him. And he has to be worried, you can be sure, that his time to impress is running out. David Wright's driven in the only Met run today. He's now reached base 9 consecutive plate appearances, 7 for 7 with 2 walks. It's gotten him up to 300 on the year. And Feldman works him inside, ball 1.
This is a team-wide epidemic. This is not a individual cold, you know.
But from the standpoint, the perspective of a young player, he's got to look at it from his own personal point of view. One-run game, and Feldman's going to be very careful with David, as hot as he is right now.
Catchers are taught that they will watch the hitter and give the sign and just try to make sure that there's no peeking involved. And what does that mean, peeking? Some hitters occasionally on certain counts, as they put their bat up, they will take a quick peripheral look at the signs that the catcher's given, or at least where he's going to be. So how do you combat that? Castillo give the sign and occasionally take a peek at David.
David gets under one to deep left field. Back goes Soriano to the track. Back at the wall, and he makes the catch. David just got under that ball a little bit, and Soriano able to retreat to the fence and reel it in. Not deep enough to get out, but awfully close. Feldman survives that, and he has a 1-run lead after 6. Being a tie game.
The baseball pitcher's equivalent of a reprieve from the governor. See his reaction. He just knows that's out. Now remember, he pitches at Wrigley Field. That certainly would have been a home run.
Well, David Wright's streak of reaching base ends at 9 plate appearances and only by a shade. So Troy Hawkins came on to get the final out in the 6th. He stays on for the 7th. Cody Ransom's been on base 3 times, 2 singles and a walk. And he tops one foul, 0-1.
This might be the key inning for the Mets here. The relievers are going to have to be perfect here. Well, not perfect, but can't give up any more runs. They're going to come back.
Starlin Castro on deck, then Alfonso Soriano against Hawkins. As the Met bullpen stays busy. We got Rizzo due up 4th in the inning, a left-hand batter. Ball to strike to Ransom. John Niese went 5 2/3, allowed 2 runs, 6 hits, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts. Lowered his ERA to 4.15, but on the hook in this game, Josh Edgin getting ready for Rizzo, 3 batters away. And Ransom tops one right back to Hawkins, but he mishandles it, and too late to get him. Well, that is the easiest of ground balls for Hawkins. Is a good athlete and normally fields his position well, but not that time.
We talked about it before, being in a fielding position. Well, Hawkins is perfect fielding position. Can't really explain that other than everything that could go wrong is going wrong. All these little plays that are the simplest of plays not being made.
That's an error on Hawkins, the Mets' first error in their last 4 games. And it gives the Cubs a leadoff base runner. For Starlin Castro, who had had enough of John Niese, faced him 3 times, struck out 3 times, the last time with the bases loaded to end the 4th. Ball strike to Castro. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Chevy. Keep rolling on with the impressive fuel economy of Chevy Cruze. Find yours at ChevyOffers.com. Actually, the second error of the game for the Mets. Forgot about that extremely unusual error that Valdespin committed back in the 1st inning on a throw back to the mound after a play was over.
Yeah, so we, 10, 15 feet was the throw distance, and here a one hopper that you could put in your back pocket.
Maybe it's Cody Ransom. He was involved both times. Got the base hit in the 1st, and Valdespin threw it away, and here an easy comebacker, and Hawkins mishandles it. Broken back grounder right to Valdespin, and again it gets upended, this time by Ransom. Second time today that Valdespin has been flipped on a takeout slide. They get the out on Ransom, 1 away.
Well, there's a couple of things you got to do if you're playing the second base bag. You've either got to use it as a buffer between you and the runners and step back, or you've got to come to right and take that throw and clear second base so you're not an easy target. When you're standing there, you are just prey for the sliding base runner.
Well, at least you have to get yourself airborne, so if you get hit, you're not hit with your foot planted, because that's how you get hurt.
Well, it's almost like he's catching it and then deciding to throw it. You've got to almost catch it and throw it all in one motion, and you're right, with the little pirouette jump at the same time.
So 1 out and 1 on. Castro aboard, and Soriano the batter. 0 for 3 today.
So Hawkins doesn't make a play. There's a double play you have to turn.
Well, you go back to the 4th inning, the pickoff play at first base, and Murphy unable to tag Rizzo out, and that led to the 2 runs.
Well, the course of a season, those little things win ball games.
Soriano lifts one to right, and Bird should have plenty of room. Tagging it first is Castro. Bird anticipating it, gets the throw in quickly. And that's a matter of knowing who you're playing against, because that's something Castro likes to do, and Bird was aware.
Before the ball's hit in the air, and this is a hanging slider that Hawk got away with, But before the ball's hit in the air, you got to know who the runner is at first and act accordingly.
Well, it looks like Hawkins is staying in to face Rizzo. The Mets got Edgin up in the bullpen, but they'll stay with Hawkins against the left-hand hitter.
I think that says a lot more about Edgin than it does about Hawkins.
I would assume that the idea of getting Edgin up was if the Cubs had a runner in scoring position, maybe you make the change.
Rizzo is in scoring position right here.
Scott Hairston on deck.
He's their home run hitter.
Although he's gone nearly a month now without a home run.
When I think of home run hitters that haven't hit in a month, they're due.
Curveball in for a strike, pitch you don't often see from Hawkins.
Good pitch.
1-1.
I think it has a lot to do with watching Josh the last couple of outings. Has not gotten up to that 94 and 95 that we saw before. More 90, 91. Going with the veteran.
40-year-old LaTroy Hawkins on the mound. There goes Castro. The throw by Recker is high, and Castro has a stolen base, his 6th of the year. So that gets the runner in scoring position.
Well, when you don't play a lot, the exchange and the throw can sometimes be a little slower. And I think that's what happened to Anthony right there. He had a great pitch to throw on, but certainly Hawkins took some time to deliver that ball.
And now they will intentionally walk Rizzo to bring up the right-hand batter and the ice-cold Scott Hairston. And we'll see if Dale Swaim makes a move. He's got plenty of left-hand hitters on his bench. Of course, he has to be pretty certain that if he brings in Nate Shearholtz or Julio Bourbon to pinch hit, that the Mets would go to Edgin in this spot. So he's going to stick to Hairston.
That was an interesting play by Castro. You always want to be in scoring position, Gary, but that might have been a place only because of Hairston hitting 150 or whatever he's hitting. They might have stayed on first base and let Rizzo take the at-bat.
Hairston is 1 for 2 in a walk today, single to left in the second. So now Castro at second and Rizzo at first with 2 out. The Cubs looking to add to a 2-1 lead against LaTroy Hawkins. An error, a double play not turned, a stolen base, and now an intentional walk, putting 2 men on for the Cubs. Hairston 1 for 2 in his career against Hawkins. Who would have figured they would have crossed paths more than that? And LaTroy misses with a slider for ball 1. It has not been a good year in any respect for Scott Hairston. 2 for 21 with runners in scoring position. Better lately, but first 2.5 months have not been what he expected when he signed with the Cubs. Fastball strike. Well, that's a pitch that Scott's usually taking a big cut at.
Tells you one of the reasons he's struggling, as you see Castillo on deck. Just taking the pitch that he usually drives.
20 home runs last year for the Mets.
Ooh.
That was scary.
Making sure it's in. That ball head high.
Nose high. But Scott was taught well. He knows how to vacate, which a lot of hitters these days don't.
Turn your back to the ball.
Two and one from Hawkins. And Hairston takes another fastball for a strike, and it's 2-2. Castro the runner at second, Rizzo at first with 2 down. Two to Hairston. Hit sharply, but right to David Wright. Gets the handle, throws out Hairston, side retired. Hawkins works around the error. 7th inning stretch time at Citi Field. Mets down a run. The Pirates now have 4 starters on the disabled list, so they bring up Brandon Compton to start today against the Dodgers. The Braves have lost 4 in a row. Mike Minor will try and stem that tide against the Giants. Cincinnati just 2.5 behind St. Louis in the Central. Cardinals send Lance Lynn against the Marlins, who beat them last night. And you see the rest of the schedule. Why we have the White Sox and Astros on there on the National League scoreboard, I'm not sure.
You're always trying to slip something past you, Gary. That's what it is. You know, Stump Gary on Wednesday. They do it every day.
I'm told that in the automated scoreboard system that we have, they have not been able to extract the Astros from the National League.
It's only June.
We'll see how it works later in the year. Marlon Byrd leading off the home 7th against Scott Feldman, who's still out there chucking. He's working with a 2-1 lead. He's driven in both the runs himself. So it's been that Little League kind of an afternoon for Scott Feldman. He's faced Byrd twice and struck him out both times. Byrd, Duda, and Turner for the Mets, who've managed just 2 hits against Feldman. Marlin takes a strike 2-1. We mentioned the Pirates. A.J. Burnett goes on the disabled list. Wandy Rodriguez, Jeanmar Gomez, James McDonald, all out.
Wow.
And their pitching has still been terrific.
It's been their strength.
Byrd smacks one to right, but Hairston retreats. 1 out. That's 10 in a row retired by Feldman. And of course, the Pirates have that 8th and 9th inning combination, which still has been the best in the league.
Grilly's 24 for 24 now.
Mark Melancon setting him up has been great too. And that's why the Pirates are only 3 games out of first place and 13 games over 500. Carlos Villanueva up in the bullpen. Lucas Duda bats with 1 out and nobody on. Lucas is popped to short and flied out to left, 0 for 2. And again, the full shift on against Duda. And this time he thinks about the bunt. The entire left side of the infield open, so why not? They're not getting anything done against Feldman.
I would say with 1 run down, that is the time he shouldn't do it. And the reason I say that is that the Mets have had trouble enough putting 3-4 hits together. If he is on first base, you're going to need 2 more hits to score him.
Well, he gets a bunt down, but in the wrong spot, and Castillo throws him out easily for the 2nd out. Well, if you're going to bunt, you got to be able to push it toward third. You've got vast expanses of open space, but Duda couldn't find it.
It's another reason why the big guys don't bunt, because they can't control the bat enough to just push the ball that way.
Well, we saw Adam LaRoche do it against the Mets earlier this year. It's a good play in the right circumstance, but you have to be able to execute. So just like that, 2 out and nobody on. 11 in a row retired by Feldman.
What you have to think in this situation, if you're Lucas, Gary, is that you're going to bunt this either the third or foul. Right. It's not going to be anything but.
Well, also, he's running up. He shouldn't be running up. All he has to do is square and push it toward third, and he can walk to first base.
It's almost like in a sacrifice position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So many little things that the Mets have not done today, and they're only down by a run, but it just gives you an idea. And Keith says this all the time. When the team is losing, you watch them play and you see things that don't necessarily show up in the box score, and you can understand why they're losing. And right now for the Mets, in addition to the fact they're not hitting, all of those little things are not going right. Whether it's double plays not turned, routine grounders not handled, tags not made, players not alert, throwing the ball back to the mound.
And honestly, as an athlete, you can appreciate the trying to get on base by Lucas. You can appreciate Valdespin standing in there and trying to turn too. The problem is you can appreciate it, but it has nothing to do with what you're supposed to do out here, and that's excel at a high level.
Well, even last night, and I was a little surprised about this after the game. David Wright got thrown out of third base by Soriano with the Mets down by 3 runs. And David said that he would do it again. I was surprised by that.
I thought I read that too, and I thought it sent the wrong sign to his teammates. I know what he's trying to say is that, you know, with Soriano moving towards center, it's a play you take a chance on, but you can't when you're down that many runs. And that's one of those plays you have to be safe at third.
Right.
Have to be. Not close or.
Well, especially late in the game, if he stays at second base, the tying run comes to bat.
It's the point I was making exactly. I appreciate the hustle,
right,
but it's a play that can't be made.
It's the timing of it.
Yeah. So I can appreciate all the things that are happening to try to make things happen.
Turner shoots one to right, chasing Hairston back to the warning track, and Scott reels it in to end the inning. 12 in a row retired by Scott Feldman. We are through 7 with the Cubs up 2-1. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Quiznos. Toasty. We're 13 2/3 innings, giving up 1 run. Painting the corners brought to you by Benjamin Moore for everything that matters.
That's your blue period, huh, Gary?
Well, the Mets are certainly blue watching Scott Feldman again.
But, you know, the thing is you know, you can see why he's been effective and has that low ERA all year. On the corners, on the knees, changing speeds. Even Travis Wood have been the best 2 pitchers for that ball club. Starting pitchers, anyway.
And hitters.
Yeah, right.
Every minute, Scott Rice into the ball game, tying for the league lead with his 37th appearance.
Well, what Rice has done all season long is that he's done what we were talking about with Feldman. He's kept that ball down. His changeup's been good. And he's not afraid to take the ball.
Last pitched on Thursday against the Cardinals. Faced 3 batters, gave up 2 hits. He'll take on Wellington Castillo to lead off the 8th inning. Castillo 0 for 2 and a walk today. Castillo, Sweeney in the pitcher's spot due up for the Cubs in the 8th. And action going now in the Chicago bullpen. So Feldman appears to be done after 7. And Castillo floats one down the right field line, and that's going to fall for a base hit. Bird quickly to it, but Castillo never had any thought of going to second base. So a pop fly single for Castillo to start the 8th inning.
Probably going to hit for Feldman, so you could bunt with Sweeney if you wanted to try to add a run if you're the Cubs. And this is just a drop kick into right field.
Well, the only caveat I would have about Sweeney bunting is that Dale Swaim is basically saddled with only left-hand hitters on his bench. And so he's got Nate Schierholtz on deck to pinch hit. So we'll see if Sweeney bunts. And he does. Straight back to Rice. Thinks about second, but goes to first. 1-3 on the sacrifice. It was straight, but he deadened it well. And Castillo gets to second with one out.
Remember Murph earlier in this series lost the ball that he fouled back? Well, Anthony Record did too. That ball went to Rice, and he was looking behind him.
Well, you know, you wear that mask, and sometimes your vision up is compromised.
You lose it.
So now Nate Schierholtz, who started in right field last night and homered his first time up, will be the pinch hitter. Schierholtz does not get used a whole lot against left-handed pitching, but he'll get the at-bat here against Rice. Castillo at second and one out. And Schierholtz lays off the slider, ball one. Schierholtz with 9 home runs now, which matches his career high. But as you see, all 9 of those have come against right-handers. Although it has seemed since Schierholtz came into the league with the Giants, he hits everything against the Mets. And he tried to hold, and he did. Gary Cederstrom with the call. 2-0.
Outfield defense, you can see Lagares shaded to left field, trying to take away that left center field gap.
Here's a good splitter by Rice. 2-1. That splitter is a relatively new pitch for Scott. And he misses with the fastball. 3-1.
That was a pretty good pitch there from Rice. We talked about Carapazza, the home plate umpire, calling that low pitch most of the ball game.
Darwin Barney waiting on deck. This is probably Rice's final batter with right-hand hitters to follow. And Schierholtz takes ball 4. Threw him a 3-1 splitter. So a single and a walk against Rice, and he's going to exit. And the Mets will bring in a right-hander to face Darwin Barney. Second time today that the Mets have gone to the bullpen with Barney coming to the plate. Brandon Lyon will come in the game. The call to the bullpen is brought to you by Sprint. Mets trying to keep this a 1-run game in the 8th. We'll be right back. Schierholtz, a 2-1 pitch that he thought he had.
Well, you should think you have the advantage there, lefty on lefty. Catches plenty of the plate. Carapazza thought it was down. And he's asking Recker, what was that pitch? As Recker and Terry Collins were approaching the mound to take him out.
Better to ask your catcher than to ask the umpire.
Yeah.
So now Brandon Lyon comes in to face Darwin Barney with 2 men on. Top of the 8th, 1 out, 2-1 Chicago. And Barney takes a strike with a slider.
Well, unscored upon in his last 4 appearances, Lyon's been much better. 30th game for Brandon.
Last pitched on Wednesday against the Cardinals. Worked a 1-2-3 8th inning in a 5-1 Mets win. Up the middle, base hit. Around third comes Castillo. He'll stop there. Lagares was playing very shallow, and Castillo, although he runs pretty well for a catcher, is not fast. So now the Cubs have the bases loaded and 1 out, and Cody Ransom coming up.
Brandon missed the spot. It's supposed to be a fastball in. It's on the outside part of the plate. And watch Castillo. He's got a good secondary lead. He did everything right. There's 2 things, though. He doesn't run great. He runs all right. And Lagares has great closing speed in center field. He runs to the ball like he wants to throw someone out. Watch a lot of outfielders. They're out there tentative, want to make sure they don't make a mistake. He's trying to come in and make a play.
So the Cubs with a prime opportunity to add to their lead. Bases loaded, 1 out for Cody Ransom, who is 2 for 3. Singled twice, walked, and then reached on the air by LaTroy Hawkins, leading off the 7th. So Lyon in a tight spot here, trying to keep this a 1-run game. Corners in, middle infielders at double play depth. And the first pitch slider misses away.
See that defense pinched in at the corners, like you said. Murph is about as far off the first base bag as you can get. Valdespin up the middle in 3 steps. There's a shortstop, Turner.
Ransom, the number 2 hitter, takes a strike. 1-1. Starlin Castro hitting 3rd in the order. He's had a rough day at the plate. He's on deck. The Cubs have had base runners all afternoon. They've already left 9 runners on base in the first 7 innings. Recker sets up inside, and Lyon misses low and inside. 2-1. Now the Cubs 12 at bats already today with runners in scoring position, 2 for 12, including that base hit by Barney a moment ago. Cody Ransom has 1 grand slam in his career. It came last year at age 36, playing for Milwaukee. 2-1 from Lyon, and Ransom hits it in the air down the left field line. Duda over for a look, but that's out of play.
Got to shake your head if you're Ransom. Got a pitch to hit there. Fortunate for the Mets, it went foul. Can't ask for it better than that. But if you're the pitcher line, you got to say to yourself, great, got away with that. Let's put him away.
Ransom, as his career has gone along, has been more of a threat in the power department. He's got 7 home runs this year in only 83 at bats now, including today.
Very deliberate, the hitters and the pitchers on both teams in this game, haven't they?
Have you noticed?
No. Guys getting up to the plate like they're hitting 400, and the pitchers taking their time in between pitches too. Although huge situation here for both sides.
Bases loaded, 1 out. 2-2 to Ransom. And he throws the curveball low and away, and a full count. Well, Lions got no room with which to operate here.
You can almost book that it's going to be the slider away, little slider cutter away. It's his best pitch against the right-handers. Ransom has seen it already 2 times in this at-bat.
Ransom's 5th plate appearance of the day and the 3rd time that he's worked to a full count. Batting here with the bases loaded. 3-2 from Lyon. And he walked him to force in a run. Castillo trots in to score, and it's 3-1 Chicago. Terry Collins has seen a lot of things this afternoon that have to have him questioning his own sanity.
He's flummoxed today, perplexed.
Now Starlin Castro bats with the bases loaded. Castro's 0 for 4 today, struck out 3 times against Niese. Grounded into a fielder's choice his last time. And Lyon misses with the sinker, ball 1.
Just when you look at this inning, you know, just bad break on a dump in the right field hit. Sweeney with the sacrifice, but then Sherholtz against the left-handed Rice. You just can't walk him. You can't. And of course, you can't walk the first batter you face with the bases loaded, or second batter.
Here's a strike at the knees, 1-1. Now Lyon came in, gave up the base hit up the middle to Barney, and then walked Ransom after getting ahead on the count. Soriano on deck. Lyon just looking to get an out. Castro's 0 for 8 in this series, in position to try and break this game open in the 8th inning. And he reaches for the slider and fouls it off, 1-2. Castro was in a huge slump until Thursday when he had a 3-hit game in the Cubs' extra inning win over the Reds.
Been one of the best undisciplined, talented young hitters to come into this league. The undiscipline is starting to work against him.
He's already had a couple of 200-hit seasons. Now Lyons ahead of him, 1-2. Kick save and a beauty made by Bell.
That is the strangest thing I've ever seen. This game, I'm going to have to get a tape of this game and watch it over because I'm not sure that these things are happening.
Shades of Hendrick Lundqvist. It's got the skate on it. And Castro, a prodigy. They brought him up at a very young age, and he hit right from the outset. He drives this one to left field. Back goes Duda, and it's over his head. Hopping up against the fence, and they say ground rule double. They say it hit the railing over the wall. So 2 runs will score. Ransom will have to go back to third, and the Cubs now lead at 5-1. So Castro's first hit in the series is a double that drives in 2. And the Cubs have scored 3 times here in the 8th inning against the Mets bullpen.
Well, he was getting him away, but he left this one slider in the middle inside part of the plate. Nice swing by Castro. Duda can't get back in time. And good call by the umpires. 1 hop into the railing. Ground rule double. Big leg kick. You can see the power. Long swing of Castro.
Now the Mets bring the infield in with runners at second and third and 1 out. Alfonso Soriano, the batter, 0 for 4 today. And he takes off the plate for ball 1. Well, the Mets bullpen has struggled all year long. John Niese was able to slog his way through 5 2/3 today. But the Cubs breaking this game open against the Mets relievers. Bases loaded walk to Ransom. A 2-run double by Castro. Lyon is yet to retire a batter. Soriano fouls one back. 1-1. So the Cubs, who were frustrated all day long and left 9 runners on in the first 7 innings, able to break through here in the 8th. A single and a walk against Rice, 2 hits and a walk against Lyon, and still only 1 out. Well, the Mets have struggled in their bullpen for 3 straight years now. Dead last in the National League in bullpen ERA, batting average against. And I think the third one probably is an underrated piece. The fact the Mets do not have pitchers who come in to strike people out. One, 2. And Soriano fouls it off. And I think that really is a staff-wide concern in an era where strikeouts keep going up and up and up. Other than Matt Harvey and Bobby Parnell, the Mets don't have people who strike hitters out.
I think you make a great point, because all across baseball, that's where teams are going. One guy throws harder than the other when they go to the bullpen.
So you get hitters who can put the ball in play. And the Castillo hit that started this inning is a perfect example. You put the ball in play, something good might happen for the offense. You strike people out, nothing good can happen.
That's right.
Here's the 1-2, and the curveball lofted into shallow left. Who's going to get it? Turner out, due to in, and Turner over the shoulder to make the catch. Well, Turner was playing in with runners at second and third and had a long way to go, but manages to catch it just in the back of the end zone.
Well, Duda didn't react, but he wasn't going to be able to make this play. It was all on Turner. And what a play he made. I mean, how far did he go? 100 feet, 120 feet to make that play. And with the over-the-shoulder catch.
So 2 out, and now Anthony Rizzo will be walked intentionally. That'll fill up the bases and bring up the right-hand batter, Scott Hairston. Second straight plate appearance that Rizzo has drawn an intentional walk. It worked for the Mets in the 7th inning as Hairston grounded out against LaTroy Hawkins. And so the Mets will go back to that well again. And Hairston will bat with the bases loaded. Seventh walk by Met pitching today.
You don't strike out anyone and you walk 7. Makes for a long day.
Met pitchers have struck out 5 today. All of those belong to John Niese. The bullpen has not struck out any. So now Lyon has another bases loaded jam to try and contend with. Hairston the batter, 1 for 3 and a walk today, and Scott takes breaking ball inside. Ball 1. First 2 runs in this inning charged to Scott Rice. The last one charged to Brandon Lyon. All 3 runners on base, Lyon's responsibility. Cubs now have 9 hits. The Mets have just 2. Man, Hairston with that patented big cut. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Drops to a knee.
Lyon taking his time here, trying to find his way through this inning. 2-1, and the curveball fouled back. And Lyon gets even on Hairston, 2-2. Lyon has faced 5 batters, given up 2 hits and 2 walks. Now the 2-2 to Hairston, and he popped it up. Murphy waiting for it to come down, and the side retired. But the Cubs add 3. Could have had more, but for the play of the game, brought to you by Mazda. If it's not worth driving, it's not worth building. Justin Turner over the shoulder. 5-1 Chicago.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. There's the Shea Bridge. Now, it's a beautiful day out here today. Too bad that 8th inning, as the Cubs now have gotten 5 runs over the Mets 1.
How was the tour, Ronnie?
The tour was outstanding. We saw the Shea Bridge.
Nate Sherholt stays in the game in right field after pinch hitting. And veteran Carlos Villanueva will be the new pitcher for the Cubs.
Well, he's got 4 runs to work with now. You see, Villanueva, his entire career has been a pitcher that could long man, occasional spot start. Had some fine years in Milwaukee.
And he's made 8 starts for the Cubs this year. Moved to the bullpen when Matt Garza came back off the disabled list. Mets will see Garza tomorrow. Anthony Recker leads off for the Mets in the bottom of the 8th. So Scott Feldman had himself another terrific game against the Mets. Retired his last 12 hitters before exiting for a pinch hitter. And Recker takes a rip. 0-1. Mets have managed just 2 hits, back-to-back doubles by Murphy and Wright in the 4th inning. They've had only 1 other base runner, a walk to Wright in the 1st. Four through 9 in the Mets batting order has gone 0 for 15 this afternoon. Juan Lagares on deck, then the pitcher spot here in the home 8th.
Well, that's his signature pitch. Villanueva's great changeup after all those fastballs to Recker.
And Record tries to hold. He went around strike 3. So Villanueva fans the first man to face him. 1 out in the bottom of the 8th.
Well, good slider there from Villanueva. Record tried to hold it up but could not.
Well, Daniel Murphy, David Wright, they've done their job at the plate this year, but around them, this team has been flailing for a long time now. John Buck had a great first month. Marlon Byrd has contributed in spots lately, but there's been no consistency around those two good hitters at the early part of the Mets order, and it's been awfully hard for this team to score runs and produce with nobody else hitting.
And Murph still encouraging people at the plate.
Murph has been encouraging since the first inning. Remember when Valdespin threw the ball away and the Mets kind of got discombobulated?
Yeah.
It was Murph who really started firing everybody up to say, hey, it's time to play the game.
Yeah.
He's getting awfully frustrated with what he's seeing around him.
You know, he's on point every single day. You know, those 2 at-bats he took in yesterday's ball game, 2 outs on the first at-bat to drive in a run.
And Lagares finds a hole, and the Mets have just their 3rd hit of the game. 13 consecutive Mets have been retired, but now Lagares aboard with 1 out.
Well, we've seen Lagares do this where he goes to right field with a couple of strikes.
Now Kirk Neuenhuis will be the pinch hitter, and it has been a dreadful return so far for Neuenhuis since coming back from the minor leagues. He's been unable to come close to a hit. He's gone 0 for 12 since his return. 0 for 21 if you go back to his first stint with the Mets this year. And Kirk takes a rip, 0-1.
Kind of teaches you a lesson, though, Gary, doesn't it, of how much to put into what you receive as far as evaluation of a player. We were getting evaluation. Kirk was down there, 8 home runs in 14 games. He's back. He's swings shortened. He's doing the things that he was doing early in the year last year.
He pulls this one into right field, and he has a base hit. Lagares trying to go first to third. Scherholtz has a very strong arm, and Lagares makes it safely. So Neuenhuis gets a breaking ball and pulls it into right field, and the Mets all of a sudden have some life. 1st and 3rd and 1 out.
Well, I have to fess up. I was going to say that Kirk has been struggling since he's come back up. But here, a decent curveball from Villanueva and nice hitting. Scherholtz probably has one of the better arms in the National League.
Which means down by 4 runs in the 8th inning, you better make it.
And he made it.
So now runners at the corners with 1 out, and Jordani Valdespin will bat. Scherholtz just into the game, showing off that right arm. Valdespin 0 for 3 today, 0 for his last 15. So Neuenhuis just snapped an 0 for 21, his first hit since early April. And now a chance for Valdespin to keep it going. With Murphy and Wright to follow, this is a huge hitter. And Valdespin punches one into right field for a base hit. Lagares will come in to score. It's an RBI single for Valdespin. And now the Mets will get the tying run to the plate here in the bottom of the 8th. 3 straight hits. Lagares, Neuenhuis, and Valdespin, 3 young players all coming through.
Well, gets jammed with his cutter, but is able to fist it out to right field.
Lagares read that ball very poorly. He was going back to the bag at third, and then Scherholtz unleashed a wild throw toward third base that could have easily gotten away. So the Mets have a chance. They've got their best hitters coming up, Murphy and Wright, with the tying run at the plate in the 8th inning. After the Cubs got 3 against the Mets bullpen in the top of the 8th, the Mets putting something together against Villanueva here in the bottom of the 8th. And the Cubs are going to get their bullpen moving again. There's nobody throwing right now, but pitching coach Chris Bosio on the phone to the bullpen, and that's going to change in a moment.
Well, he really felt this is the chance you would have if you could get the hitters before Murphy and Wright, and we showed you the graphic. You got a chance.
Murphy takes a strike. Murphy's driven the ball to left and left center his last 2 times up. In the 4th, he hit one off the fence and left for a double. Last time up, he hit one back to the warning track in left center that was caught. And Murphy fouls it away. 0-2. Carlos Marmol quickly to work in the Chicago bullpen. He pitched an inning last night. Murphy's 2 for 2 in his career against Villanueva, but he's in an 0-2 hole here. Mets have put together 3 straight hits. And that one bounces into Castillo. And Nieuwenhuis has to go back to second.
How many 50-foot tosses have we seen this series? Ball hits about 3 feet in front of the plate. Marvelous job by Castillo.
That looked like a fastball, didn't it?
I don't know what it was, but it was not close. That would have been a ball low at the Little League distance.
Nieuwenhuis and Valdespin, each with good speed. 1 out in the inning. Villanueva trying to work around trouble in his return to the bullpen after working as a starter, being asked to give the Cubs the 8th inning.
Castillo and Villanueva cannot agree on what he wants to throw. He calls his catcher out. Usually, when there's disagreement this long, it usually means fastball inside. Why is that? Because usually a catcher will put down a one for a fastball to be shaken off. He'll go through the rotisserie of other breaking pitches and it keeps shaking off. Really, he wants the fastball, but he wants it inside.
1-2 to Murphy. He does set up inside, and Murphy grounds it to the right side. Rizzo thought about second, but takes the sure out at first. And the runners move to second and third. Now 2 out and David Wright coming up. Well, David has been swinging such a hot bat. You wonder whether Dale Swaim would be swayed at all to put that tying run on base and go after Marlon Byrd instead.
Yeah, I think he'll pitch to him careful. You got a veteran pitcher who's been around. He'll try to get David to get himself out.
Wright had reached base 9 straight times until his last at bat, and he hit it to the top of the wall in left field, and Soriano was able to grab it to end the 6th inning. You see the numbers against Villanueva, 3 for 9. 2 in scoring position for Wright with 2 down. And David takes a strike. Marlon Byrd would be next. The Cubs 5 runs and 9 hits. The Mets 2 runs and 5 hits. We're in the 8th. And Castillo stops it. A ball and a strike. '29-year-old Carlos Villanueva, who spent the last 2 years in Toronto after beginning his career in Milwaukee. One to Wright, and he lays off. 2-1. And Villanueva wants another conversation with his battery mate Castillo.
I don't think David's going to get a fastball to hit. He's just going to keep throwing balls in the dirt to see if he swings over one. Maybe a little cutter away, but he won't be challenged.
And then the question is, if you're David Wright, how much do you expand your strike zone in a spot like this? Tying run at the plate in a 5-2 game.
Well, you have to think against this pitcher, you're not going to get a ball inside. So lean out over.
And the curveball in for a strike. 2-2.
It's all right. No, that's not your pitch to hit. 2-1, you got to be looking for something away. Maybe a cutter changeup. Fools you with the curveball. That's fine. You're still in the at-bat.
Two and two to right. And he got him with a breaking ball. Wright is struck out to end the inning. Mets settle for 1 run. Valdespin with an RBI single cuts the Cubs lead to 5-2. Blue sky overhead. Just a perfect Saturday in New York in the middle of June on what used to be the trading deadline in Major League Baseball. Greg Burke will pitch the top of the 9th as he did last night. He worked a 1-2-3 inning. And so Burke in for the 2nd straight day. Odd to see his numbers against lefties better than his numbers against righties for the side-arming right-hander. He'll face the lower third of the Cubs batting order as we go to the top of the 9th. Castillo, Sweeney, and Scherholtz due up. Wellington Castillo got the 3-run 8th inning started for the Cubs with a bloop single. He's 1 for 3 on the day. Burke now the 5th Met pitcher of the afternoon. And Castillo takes the breaking ball inside for ball 1. John Niese went 5 2/3, allowed 2 runs and 6 hits. LaTroy Hawkins an inning and a third, no runs, no hits. Scott Rice a third of an inning. He was charged with 2 runs. Brandon Lyon 2/3 of an inning. He was charged with 1 run. And Castillo, it's a shot that gets under Wright's glove and into left field. So Castillo is aboard on a bullet right at the feet of David Wright, and Castillo will get credit for a base hit.
Well, hot corner they call it. Not only does that, it's like a tracer. The ball coming at you and plus has that top spin.
So now Ryan Sweeney, who sacrificed in the 8th inning, this time facing a right-hand pitcher, so nobody looking for the bunt. He's 1 for 3 on the day, and he takes a breaking ball strike. Sweeney, the number 8 hitter. Nate Scherholtz in the 9-hole waits on deck. Kevin Gregg, who got the save last night, getting ready for another potential save opportunity today. Of course, if the Cubs score another run, that would take away the save chance. A ball and a strike to Sweeney. Well, that's in the Cubs dugout. No mechanics, no numbers. Keep it simple. That's a pretty good mantra.
It's about quality at bats that help the team, us, U.S., not you, us win.
Down the line, that's an extra base hit for Sweeney. Castillo digs for third. Bird digs it out, and the Cubs have runners at second and third with nobody out. Just a bouncing ball, and with Murphy playing off the line, Sweeney has himself his second double of the game.
Fastball down and in, and gets a little hard in this infield. You know, it's been baking under the sun. Hits it straight down off the dirt of the infield and bounds over the head of Murphy.
The Cubs now have 11 hits to go with 8 walks. And this will be the 9th walk and the 3rd intentional walk of the game. As Scherholtz, who walked in his first plate appearance against the left-hander, will be intentionally walked by the right-hander. And Darwin Barney will get a chance with the bases loaded and nobody out.
I was thinking about that sign, Gary, is that, you know, as two sides battle, the guys that are have their eyes and ears close to the game and the guys that really know the numbers of the game, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's like letting all the athletes know on that Cubs bench that, hey, once we start competing and in the game, let's not worry about what we did before the game, how we hit off the tee. Let's just compete. Take every pitch, every at bat is the most important. If you're pitching, get ahead. You know, just simplifying how to play the game.
Well, I think you know, part of the message seems like don't be paralyzed by too much information.
Yeah. Let talent flow.
Barney 2 for 5 today. The Mets bring the infield in with the bases loaded, nobody out, and Barney waves at the breaking ball by Burke. 0-1. Well, the Cubs have been struggling offensively, but now 35 hits in their last 3 games, including 11 today. Castillo, Sweeney, and Scherholtz, the base runners. This has been an ugly afternoon for the Mets bullpen.
Watch them getting in ready position, defensive ready position, both on their toes, glove in front. Classic position by both infielders. Interesting simultaneously, right?
Burke's ahead in the count 0-2. And it's laced into center field. Lagares trapped it, I believe. No indication by any umpire. Now finally the first base umpire says that he trapped it. And now the Mets get a force at the plate. They already have a force at second. The throw goes to third. They should have 2 outs. He's already out. He was forced at the plate. Or was he? Actually, they were standing at second base. That took the force off. And Castillo gets back to the base safely. And so the only man who's out on the play was the runner at first, Scherholtz. So now the first base umpire, Lance Barrett, says trap. The base runners all froze. The Mets threw the ball to second base. That forced Scherholtz. Then they threw home for what they thought was a force, but it wasn't because they'd taken the force off. Threw it back to third and right rather than tagging Castillo immediately. Held on to the ball, and Castillo was able to get back to third. And the Mets get only 1 out on what could have easily been a triple play.
To me, it looks like he caught the baseball. Yeah, that bounced in the glove. It bounced over the leather.
That's what it appeared to do.
That's a caught baseball.
It took a long time for anybody to call this play. Look at the first base umpire. Then he calls it.
He calls it.
And you get a safe sign by the second base umpire, which is the wrong call because the runner at first is out on the force. Now they throw home thinking they have a force, but they don't. Wright should have tagged Castillo there, but he didn't.
Yep, that's the key.
Because he thought they had a force, but the force was off, and Castillo got his foot back on third. Now the question is, did the third base coach, David Bell, make contact with his runner?
He did, and I think that's something that Terry should come out about. You cannot touch your runner. He forced the runner back onto third base. He's off the bag with his hands raised. Watch David Bell. He realizes that he's going to get back to the bag. Can't do that.
You can't touch him.
And he probably looked like he was out anyways with the tag. Wow.
So it's a forced play on Sherholtz for the first out of the inning. The bases remain loaded with one out.
Well, Barney doesn't know if it's down or not. He goes to first base. Forced on Sherholtz. It should have been called a catch.
So it's an 8-6 force play on Sherholtz for the first out. And a half swing, 1-1.
Everyone involved here, we need a big top. Watch the leather. See how he gets it down on the ground? So when it bounces on the leather.
That's a catch.
That's a catch. Wow.
Either way, the Mets get one out, because if it was ruled a catch, all the runners were going to get back. But the fact that it wasn't ruled a catch, the Mets could have easily had a triple play had they handled it correctly. If they had realized what they had, you throw home first, you get the out there, and they could have easily gotten the other two base runners. Or after getting that force at second, they could have at least gotten a double play by taking Castillo at third. But they didn't. One and two now to Cody Ransom, who's had a big day. 2 hits, 2 walks. Drove in a run with a bases loaded walk his last time up. Batting again with the bases loaded. And the slider outside. Let's look at that catch in close-up form.
Now, I'm not saying it's not a difficult call. It's very difficult, because you know what umpires are taught? If the ball bounces, then it's a trap. But that bounced within the leather. So it hits the very end and just bounces right into the pocket. Tough call. I'm not saying that.
Nice play by Lagares on a bullet hit by Darwin Barney.
Overshadowed is the defensive Lagares again.
2-2 now to Ransom. And he struck him out. So Burke gets the second out as he fans Ransom. That's the first strikeout for a Met reliever this afternoon.
Good breaking ball by Burke.
So 2 out now. Starlin Castro, whose 2-run double over the head of Duda in left field in the 8th, broke this game open. Castillo is at third, Sweeney at second, and Barney at first with 2 down. And a little half swing, pop up. Murphy charging into foul ground, side retired, and so somehow the Mets escaped that inning without the Cubs scoring after they had the bases loaded and nobody out. To the bottom of the 9th we go, 5-2 Chicago. Catch that was called a trap And the Mets trying to explain to each other exactly what happened. The confusing part, of course, is that Lagares caught the ball, but it was called a trap. And then when the Mets threw the ball to second base, got a forced play, which I don't think they even realized they had, because at that point they were still trying to sort out whether the ball had been caught.
That's right. Well, you got to go with the umpire's call. I mean, we were able to see it 3 or 4 times to see that Lagares made a fine play, and it was a catch. But you got to go with what the umpire calls. And he called a no catch. And what's Colin Cowgill got? He's got the.
It's a glove pounder.
If you don't believe me, I'm telling you, I'll take this pounder to you.
Well, the Mets can talk about this another time. Now they'll try and rally against Kevin Gregg in the bottom of the ninth.
Maybe the only person happy on the field is Kevin Gregg. He's got a save opportunity. He's been perfect. 8 for 8.
Well, the Cubs have left 15 runners on base, including 3 times they've left the bases loaded, including each of the last 2 innings. So that's left the door open at least somewhat for the Mets to try and find some offensive spark here in the ninth. Marlon Byrd leads off, Duda and Turner to follow. Byrd is 0 for 3 today, 2 strikeouts and a fly ball. And he fouls off the first offering from Kevin Gregg. And David's still trying to figure out how that play transpired.
They'll be talking about it in the clubhouse. The only way they won't be talking about it, a rally right here in the ninth.
That would certainly make the conversation moot, wouldn't it? The thing about it is, and you go back to the call, is that if Lagares catches the ball, the result would have been exactly the same.
Exactly.
It would have been bases loaded, 1 out.
They had all gone back to the bag. The runners had. When you think about it, the umpires gave them a chance to get out of that inning if it was, if they were thinking properly.
Well, a lot of confusion even at this point now in that Mets dugout, trying to figure out how they didn't get at least 2 outs on the play.
I would concentrate on figuring out Kevin Gregg right now and then worry about the play later.
Gregg pitched a 1-2-3 ninth yesterday to earn his 8th save in 8 tries, inherited the closer's role when Carlos Marmol gave it up. And Byrd bounces 1 foul. Well, coming up next on Pix 11, it's Unsealed Alien Files. And on SNY, it's W.B. Mason post-game live. You choose.
It's kind of Alien Files there in that last inning. Are we in prime time yet?
Getting close. Two and 2 now to Byrd with Duda waiting on deck. Mets need base runners here in the ninth. They got 3 straight hits in the 8th to play to run, but Carlos Villanueva was able to get out of it by getting the 2 best hitters for the Mets, Murphy and Wright, on a grounder and a strikeout. And now leave it to Gregg to try and protect a 3-run lead in the ninth. And Byrd hits one up the middle. That's a base hit to get the Mets started in the last of the ninth. And Marlin almost took that ball off the ground for the Mets' 7th hit of the game, making their 6th hit of the game. So now Duda, who's 0 for 3 today. Last time up with the extreme shift on, he tried to bunt for a base hit, but got it only a few inches in front of the plate and was thrown out by the catcher Castillo. So the Mets need 1 more base runner to get the tying run to the plate here in the bottom of the ninth. Duda just 5 hits in his last 36 at bats. And he grounds 1 foul. Justin Turner waits on deck. Just wide. Ball and a strike. "34-year-old Kevin Gregg resurrecting his closing career as a Cub. 2 balls and a strike now to Duda. And it's wide, ball 3. Three and one now to Duda with Bird at first and nobody out. And Lucas pops it up. Third baseman Ransom makes the call, and that's the first out. So a big out for Kevin Gregg after falling behind against Duda.
Remember that game? It was the most improbable Met comeback. I believe the pitcher for the Cubs was Ryan Dempster. I think it was here, and they came back for 4 or 5 runs in the ninth to win that ball game.
2007, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe 2008.
So maybe it was the Big Shea then.
Remember Dempster's extreme frustration. It was an afternoon game, weekday afternoon game, I think. 1 out and 1 on. Justin Turner, the batter. 0 for 3. Drove the ball to right field his last time up, and Hairston went back on the warning track to grab it. John Buck has come out on deck to bat for Anthony Recker to give the Mets a shot. If Turner can get on. But quickly, Gregg gets ahead 0-2. While the Cubs have had opportunities all day long, the Mets' chances have been few and far between. Back-to-back doubles in the 4th, but they stranded Wright. 3 straight hits in the 8th, and they stranded a pair, and that's basically been it. While the Cubs have stranded 15. Oh, 2 to Turner, and he lofts one foul. Scott Feldman went the first 7 for Chicago, allowed just a run on 2 hits. He's in line for his 6th win, his 2nd against the Mets. And as was the case the first time he faced them, Feldman had a big hit as well. A 2-run single that plated the first 2 Chicago runs. And Turner pulls one down to third. It comes up on Ransom, and he can't make a play, and the Mets will get the tying run to the plate. Off the bat, it looked like it could be a game-ending double play. Instead, it came up on Ransom. He couldn't handle it, and the Mets have life in the 9th.
Well, that's a classic, and you don't see it happen too much anymore with the way they drag the fields, but that was just a bad hop. As he shakes his head, there's nothing that Ransom could do. This ball is going to be a double play, and see that hop? Just jumped right up into his chest. Couldn't find it. Whenever I think of that kind of bad hop, I think of Tony Kubek in the World Series. Ball came right up and hit him high in the chest, and he lost contact with it.
Well, they're going to score that an error on Ransom. Here's John Buck to pinch hit. Tying run at the plate. Tries to hold the swing. And he did.
That's a tough error. No one makes that play. Yeah. I mean, nobody.
That's a bad scoring decision.
Yeah.
I don't know if the scorers saw the replay and saw the bad hop, but that's got to be a hit.
So few bad hops, Gary, that I don't know, sometimes they miss it.
Fastball strike, 1-1 to Buck. Buck caught last night, went 0 for 4. Juan Lagares, who had a base hit his last time up, waiting on deck. Mets with hope here in the 9th, with Buck at the plate as the tying run. 11 home runs this year. He pops one up into shallow center. Out goes Castro, and he makes the grab for the 2nd out. The infield fly rule was never called because there was not at all a routine play for the shortstop. So now the Mets are down to their final out.
Nice play, though, by Castro. Half the battle of these plays is that you got to be an infielder who wants to make that play. And you see it's tough for Bird. He doesn't know which way to go. Should I stay or should I go now? I'll stay.
It's quite a clash. So now the Mets are down to their final out. Lagares, whose only home run in the major leagues came against the Cubs. Tying run at the plate, takes a letter high strike. Lagares singled to right on an 0-2 pitch to get the Mets started in the 8th and came around to score. 1 for 3 on the day. Ball and a strike to Lagares.
100th game today, Gary?
Yeah, 63rd game.
63rd, I mean.
100 to go
yeah.
Before today. 99 after today. Josh Satin on deck to pinch hit if Lagares can keep it going. But now the Mets are down to their final strike.
Well, I don't know. You don't know what's going to happen here today with 2 outs, but all of these players on this team with 99 left are going to have to, before they get on the plane to leave for Atlanta tomorrow, going to have to take a look in the mirror, because there's a season to go, and have to figure out what your part is going to be in the remaining games.
Well, the attention to detail today has been dreadful. Lagares takes inside 2-2. Doesn't mean they're not trying. It just means that things that should not happen have happened frequently in the 9 innings today. Aaron throws back to the mound. Tags not made. Easy ground balls not handled.
Double plays not turned.
And on and on. Castillo going out to make sure with Greg before they go after Lagares on a 2-2 pitch. Two on, 2 out, 2-2 to Juan Lagares. Inside, ball 3. Walk to Lagares would put the tying runs on base. Josh Satin on deck to pinch hit if Lagares can keep it moving.
A fastball in, set up the breaking ball away.
Bird and Turner will get set to run. 3-2 from Greg, and Lagares hits it in the air to right field. Sherholtz coming on, looking up through the sunglasses, and that'll do it. The Cubs have taken the first 2 games of the series as they rally for 3 in the 8th against the Mets bullpen. And the Mets, on a day when their attention to detail was less than stellar, fall to the Cubs again, 5-2.
Well, sloppy game by the Mets. John Niese only gave up 2 runs, but it wasn't his best effort with 4 walks. Feldman was as good as you want to be for the Cubs. Only gave up a couple of hits and a run in his 7 innings of work. And the Cubs had left 15 on, so they tried to keep the Mets in the ballgame. Did not work out.
Took 3 hours and 32 minutes to play. Jonathan Niese suffers the loss. Feldman beats the Mets for the 2nd time this year and drives in 2 more runs as the Cubs win it 5-2. We'll come back with more from Flushing in a moment.